We will call our public hearing of council to order and pass it to our Director of Corporate Administration. Good morning.
Good morning. This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone who may be affected by the proposed changes to the city's zoning bylaw regarding 3 zoning requests. Bylaw number 4219 proposes to rezone the property located at 1901 96th Avenue from C6 Commercial Fuel Sales Zone to C4 Commercial Service Zone. And bylaw number 4220 proposes to rezone the properties located at 505 and 601 on 116th Avenue from C2 Commercial General Zone to C4 Commercial Service Zone. And bylaw number 4222 proposes to rezone the property located at 1529 102nd Avenue from C2 Commercial General Zone to RS2 Residential Single and Duplex Zone. And there were no comments received.
Thank you. So I'll call, do we call now for our 3 times or do?
Yes.
Okay, so we call for a first time for any comments? Call for a second time for comments? And call for a third time for any comments? Thank you. So we have a motion to close the Councillor Schumann, Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to call to order our regular meeting of council. And I'd like to first just begin by obviously expressing the sincere condolences to the people in the RCMP family, the people directly affected by the tragedy in Moncton. Obviously a horrible, horrible event in our Canadian history, and so obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to those people that were directly affected, as well as to the RCMP in general. Item 2, new councillor business. Anyone? Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, I want to thank you for allowing me to attend the Recycling Council of BC's conference. There was really great sessions, learning about best practices in large-scale composting, diverting organics from our landfills, et cetera, et cetera. Great sessions on the innovation, circular economy, how all of design plays into it, and had a chance to speak with Alan Langdon from MMBC, and of course I'm still hopeful that we'll get to it maybe in 2015, have some curbside recycling in Dawson Creek. Yeah, it was just really good. It's always nice to hang out with people of like-mindedness, so I really enjoyed it, and so I want to thank you for allowing me to go to that.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden?
Just a question to Cheryl. Were you able to get any idea on how Dawson Creek compares with other communities in the province in terms of recycling? Did that topic come up at all?
Well, there was very many regional districts in attendance there, and I think the North is falling behind when it comes to recycling, because we're not implementing curbside in the North. And with the MMBC, the PPP regulation from the province, they're actually able to meet their requirements by signing up several big cities. So I'm kind of worried what's going to happen come 2015, because maybe they don't need us signed out on, because they've already got their quota. So there was some conversations about maybe increasing that from 75% to 90% or something like that. But I know that Smithers accepted the incentive from MMBC, and they've implemented their curbside program. And in their first pickup, they were able to divert like 10,000 tons from their landfills. So I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have perhaps forewarned you. I didn't let Cheryl know I was going to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow, did you have an item?
No.
Oh, sorry. Any other items for new councillor business? Councillor Wilbur?
Just want to update, so I've been notified the first NCLJ meeting will be July 25th, 26th this year instead of the fall, so I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to send a big thank you out to the community. Camp Day was a huge success with Tim Hortons, and I know Councillor Schumann was there with me, and I apologize for anyone whose coffee order was messed up in the drive-thru, but I had fun, even though it was cold. So I did spend the morning at Timmy's on Alaska and then the afternoon on the one on 8th, and companies were coming out in droves to buy coffee and support it. So I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations to our local Tim Hortons. They have excellent staff, worked really hard and did a good job.
Thanks for going to that, you guys.
Yeah, so I didn't slow up the drive-through line, but anybody who had a slight tummy ache, I didn't realize there was a difference between when they said milk and cream. So I was just giving everybody cream, and I think I didn't stir half of them. So, yeah.
But it was fun.
Felt kind of bad.
Plead the fifth. I didn't know.
I just kept saying, I'm just a volunteer today. I'm just a volunteer. You
Thanks
don't
for-
want to get between someone and their tummies, right?
Thank you for going, you guys.
good.
We appreciate that.
It's fun.
Minutes of our regular meeting of council for May 26th. Councillor McFadden, seconded. Councillor Parslow. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? Correspondence? Anything? Delegations are set for 9 a.m., so we'll move to item 7.1. We have a report from the Chief Financial Officer in regards to our gas tax expenditure. Councillor Parslow.
I move that report number 14-107 from the CFO regarding the 2013 gas tax annual expenditure report be received. Further, that the 5-year gas tax allocation plan be approved as presented and integrated into the city's 2014 5-year plan.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor McFadden. Discussion? Councillor Parslow.
I'm pleased to see that the emphasis is on sidewalks. I think that's good from the point of view of helping people get around the city. But I wonder, given the criteria, I just needed some help here with the previous year's usage of this. In the report, it states eligible project categories include public transit, local roads, bridges and tunnels, active transportation infrastructure, which is sidewalks, right? Community energy systems, water and wastewater, solid waste management, capacity building, and integrated community sustainability plan. So just help me here if I can direct this question to somebody, maybe Kevin.
That's fun. Take it.
Which category did Pioneer Village upgrades and NAR station upgrades fit into?
Through your worship, so because we're doing the community gas tax report at the end of the reporting year, basically what we have to do is find projects that are eligible that meet the criteria. And so we basically take away anything that has borrowing attached to it. Any borrowing, okay? I'm just going through the process for you, so give you an idea of how we get there. If there was anything to do with the carbon tax reserve, we took that out. So then we're left with projects that either have energy efficiencies or reduce carbon emissions, that kind of thing. So both with NAR and Pioneer, there was significant improvement in energy efficiency in both of those projects. So that's how they made the list. Now, I'd also like to report that the Finance Department received notification last week that we'll be audited on the 2013 projects. So basically what UBCM and federal and provincial auditors will determine whether those projects that were submitted actually move those outcomes forward. So did I answer your question?
Yes. What was the specific Pioneer Village project?
I think it had to do with Sedaten Hall, but there's been a number of ones over the the things, but I can check into the specific project and get back to you on that. But it was to do with energy efficiencies.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Councillor Schumann?
So my question is, all of the sidewalks listed, I'm assuming that they will be, but they are identified in our transportation plan as the first to be done? To Kevin, I suppose.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up that report so I can look exactly which ones were.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that, Your Worship. So basically, the projects that are identified are in our capital plan,
Okay.
and they're over the 5 years. So what we're doing this year with the capital asset management plan is actually integrating all those big master plans. So if there is any misalignment with the projects that are listed, we'll basically bring you an update when we put the capital plan forward. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 7.2, we have a report from Director of Corporate Administration regarding snow removal. Councillor Wilbur?
I will move the recommendation that report number 14-110 from the Deputy Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding sidewalk maintenance policy be received. Further, that council approve the sidewalk maintenance policy as presented, subject to the 30-day public review period.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Parslow. Discussion?
Yeah, I did have a question that I sent to Kevin, I believe, about this. And so it's really the bylaw enforcement. I was wondering about costs. So the extension is bylaw enforcement, which is good.
Yeah, it's just basically the report is moving us one further block of sidewalk maintenance into the bylaw and it will be monitored by our bylaw enforcement folks. And just to add to that scope of sidewalk maintenance in our downtown core. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.3. Councillor McFadden?
I would make the motion that report number 14-108 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the Dawson Creek Annual Report for 2013 be received, and further, that the City of Dawson Creek's Annual Report for 2013 be made available to the public, and further, that July the 14th, 2014 be declared the annual meeting, at which time council will receive final input from the public before approving the annual report.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Parslow. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.4. Councillor Schumann.
So I would move that report number 14-106 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding Recognition Committee, I'm going to get this name wrong, Jens Liebgott, be received. Further, that the staff be directed to locate a suitable wall within the Calvin Crooks Center for the Arts to provide recognition to those that have made significant contributions to the arts community. Further, that pending approval from the CKCA Design Committee, that a framed picture plaque commemorating Mr. Jens Liebgott be approved for placement on the wall of recognition. Should the above recommendation be approved, staff suggests that a further recommendation be considered, that the city recognition awards policy be amended to include placement of a recognition plaque on the wall of recognition at the city facility under the types of awards title. So I guess we're moving the first thing, and then we'll need a second
Yes.
motion.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow. Seconded.
Yep.
Discussion? Councillor Parslow.
Yeah. I just like to reaffirm that, you know, that when I was working to try to get refocus for Grandview School, Jens Liebgott was my liaison person and did a lot of work. I appreciated his leverage with the club.
Yeah. yeah, for all of us who've been in the community for a long time, it's a well-known name going back to the 60s, I think, when Jens was very involved, both in the business community as well as in the arts. And so it's certainly appropriate, in my view, that we take the opportunity to recognize and provide that recognition within the new facility for those people who have been instrumental, like we do in our arenas and things like that. So it's good. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
So I would also make the recommendation that the city recognition award policy be amended to include placement of a recognition plaque on the wall of recognition at a city facility under the type of awards title.
I'll
Thank you.
second that motion.
Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.5, we have a report. Councillor Parslow?
Yes, I'd like to move that report number 14-116 from the Director of Corporate Administration, the Residential Development Committee be received. Further, that the following applicants be appointed to the Residential Development Select Committee as voting members: Doug Scott, Real Flow Investments; Sylvia Hartnell, Property Owner and Rental Manager; Shane McNulty, Resident; Rudy Van Sponson, Business Owner; Kathleen Connolly, Chamber of Commerce; Joe Martishaw, Engineering Technician; Lean Jacob, Power Engineer; Fred Cornelson, PRRD Building Inspector; Tom Gannon, Fire Department, retired; and James Ferry, Project Manager, Western Canadian Properties Group. Further, the Council, a City of Dawson Creek Building Inspector, the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development, admin staff, and representatives from Urban Systems be appointed as non-voting members, and further, that the committee be directed to provide a recommendation to Council on or before September the 15th, 2014.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? So this just flows from the discussion and work that we had brought forward earlier in the year as a result of some of the zoning amendments under our OCP that we had brought forward. And so it's good to see we got a nice cross-section of folks involved and interested from the community. And so we appreciate that, and it's good to see it moving forward.
I agree.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.6. Councillor Parslow?
I move that report 14-105 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development be received. Further, that Council direct staff to install a bench at the bus stop located just west of 10th Street on 103rd Avenue.
Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? So this just has a little bit of history in terms of the downtown corner where we had a bench and created some opportunities in terms of where the business is located there. And so we're going to put a bench back in place that was removed, and as a first step to try to see if we can have a proper rest spot for the bus transit users, and see how that moves forward. So in the past, it was being used as a sleeping accommodation for folks, and was creating some opportunities for the downtown businesses. So we've now going to try and see if we can put a bench back in place. So just for the benefit of folks that are wondering what this was about. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.7. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you. I would move 7.7, that report number 14-112 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding environmental assessment of 212 115th Avenue be received. Further, that Council direct staff to issue an RFQ for Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessment on 208 115th Avenue, and further that Council authorized the transfer of up to $75,000 out of the Land Reserve Fund for the work. And finally, that Council authorized staff to review the lease with Dolan Contracting Limited for the additional 1-year term available under the original lease at a rate of $10,000 a year. Wow. A little complicated for me there.
You did well.
Thank you.
You did good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion?
I think
It's good.
it's important to do this so that we can deal with the land properly after this assessment,
Yeah.
so I support it.
Good. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item 7A.
I did, but my computer is so slow, I can't get anything up before anybody else.
Councillor Wilbur?
Sure. Mine was first, I guess. All right,
Oh,
I'll make the
that's-
recommendation that the report number 14-113 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding the development permit number 14-07, application from Summit Mountain Construction for 47 Vic Turner Road be received. Further, excuse me, that development permit number 14-07 for the development of a service shop at 47 Vic Turner Road be authorized in principle and issued upon successful completion of the required 10-day notification period and receipt of the financial security. Did that without glasses.
Good job. Seconded by Councillor McFadden. Discussion? So just more, in terms of we see the amount of investment and development that's occurring in our community, both in terms of residential and commercial. Here's an example of a business that situated here not that long ago and is already expanding the facility as a result of the need for additional space and growth. So what a great story. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.9.
Now I have nothing.
Mine's not up yet.
I have nothing.
Sorry.
Am I moving along too
Could
quickly
we,
for
could, we
you?
have a, could we have a coffee break for just a few seconds?
Okay. I move the report number 14-114 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development, redevelopment permit 14-08, application from Kyle Chaffee of K&O Electric for 1025 99th Avenue be received. Further, that development permit number 14-08 for the development of a commercial shop at 1025 99th Avenue be authorized in principle and issued upon successful completion of the required 10-day notification period and receipt of the financial security.
Seconded by Councillor Wilbur.
I will, and I just want to add
discussion?
another business that's expanding, so good to see another local business growing.
And the great message here is that we have those areas that have been developed in our community over the long term, and that those businesses that were situated up in 99th, 100th Avenue in that area of, are now starting to see the benefit of land values and the development and infill and replacing new with old. And what a great, another great message
Yeah.
for our community. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item 7.10.
I'm sure it's something fascinating.
Councillor McFadden?
Well, I am having a little trouble here, but I will.
Our internet's,
Technology, the
Yeah.
world of technology.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that report number 14-115 regarding temporary use permit number 1401, an application from Loisel Investments to continue to use a laydown on Alaska Avenue for, I think it's 1 year, be approved. I don't have it. I'm just sort
Thank
of
you.
going from memory here, Your
Thank you.
Worship.
Seconded by Councillor Schumann. Discussion? So in terms of background, this is the property out on Alaska Avenue owned by Gary Loisel, and it's going to be used, it's a temporary use for the BC Hydro pole upgrade program that's going on in the community in the long term, and they're going to need it for the pole storage while they're doing a significant and a major upgrade to the wooden poles in the community. And so this is just a temporary use for that land for them to be able to have access to the poles in a convenient location. Sorry, Brenda?
The recommendation was for a period of 18 months.
18 months?
Thank you.
Thank you. Moved and it was seconded by Schumann. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 7.11, Councillor Parslow.
Move that report number 14-118 from the Deputy Director of Infrastructure Asphalt Millings be received. Further, that Council approve the request to donate the millings from the 102nd Avenue Capital Roadworks project to the Bear Mountain Ski Hill to use for repairs on their existing parking lot.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann, seconded. Discussion?
Great. I think that's great
Yeah.
that we can do that.
Yeah, so for the benefits, Councillor Schumann?
I'm just curious, do they take it and melt it down and spread it out, or like how does that work, Kevin?
Through your worship, what you can do with these millings is they just use them cold, they'll spread them out and they'll pack them, and it creates a, not as good as asphalt, but it creates a fairly firm and surface that they can drive on. It's better than gravel, but not quite as good as asphalt.
Okay.
And so with the millings of the 102nd Avenue, that's going to be beginning that process of repaving, and they'll be milling it. We're going to donate that millings to the Bear Mountain Ski Hill for the purpose of their parking lot.
Yeah. Through your worship, my understanding is they want approximately 1/3 of what's available. And just for your information, the value on that, we would use those millings in other areas, laneways, other gravel areas where we can. And we will use, obviously some of them, but the value on what they're looking for, the use is we'd value about $30,000, just for council's info.
Thank you.
Donation.
Further discussion? Sorry?
I said that's a nice donation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And item 7.13, Councillor Schumann.
From Councilor Barslow's computer. I move that report number 14-119 from the Deputy Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding the fairgrounds drainage be received. Further, that council directs staff to hire DAR X excavating for the fairgrounds drainage project.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Parslow, discussion? Councillor
This
Parslow?
work definitely needs to be done, so it's lowest bid, so it's a natural to go ahead with it.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Sorry, my mistake there. 713 now.
Oh, what did I do?
You did 712, sorry.
Sorry.
That was correct.
You were right, agenda.
I've got something now, but no, it's not. Where's our guy?
Technology's not working for us today.
Oops.
I have
It's,
nothing.
I me either, but I believe it's the old timers lease.
Through your
Yes.
worship, I could read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
thank
make the
you.
motion if you read it for me, please, Brenda.
That report number 14-109 from the Deputy Director of Community Services regarding Dawson Creek Old Timers lease be received. Further, that the attached lease agreement between the City of Dawson Creek and the Dawson Creek Old Timers be approved for a 3-year term with the lease rate set at $2,700 annually, commencing July 1st, 2014 and ending June 30th, 2017.
I'll make that motion what Brenda said.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. So we're at 9 o'clock, or very close, and so I'd like to move back to our delegations. And our first delegation is a proclamation. Ken Watson and Ann McCabe are in attendance. Read the proclamation for Crime Stoppers Week. So if they're in the gallery, if I could get them to come forward. Good morning. Morning. How are you guys? I'm the hugger.
He'll hug you too, Ken.
He'll hug you too.
Come on. So whereas anonymous tips are being handled by one society covering the whole northeast corner of British Columbia. And whereas the society accepts anonymous tips via phone, through the web, or by text messages, to commit to keeping confidentiality for individuals and partnering with the media and police as part of the provincial, national, and international organization help make communities a safer place to live. And whereas Northeast BC Crime Stoppers is part of a new initiative by Global BC's news channel, which is focused on airing information about unsolved crimes or incidents in the hopes of generating new information. And whereas the City of Dawson Creek recognizes Crime Stoppers for celebrating 25 years in the region by holding their 15th annual fundraising golf tournament on June 13th, 2014 at the Lone Wolf Golf Course. And whereas, on behalf of the citizens of Northeast BC who wish to live in a safe community and who wish to acknowledge that Crime Stoppers has been operating in this area for 25 years, now therefore, I do hereby proclaim the week of June 10th to 15th, 2014 as Crime Stoppers Week in Dawson Creek. Congratulations. I gotta get my glasses. I can't see. So if you guys like to,
That's 1989 is when Crime Stoppers first came into the area, both in Fort St. John and in Dawson Creek, so it's the 25th anniversary. It's also the 15th anniversary of our fundraising golf tournament in Taylor and Lone Wolf this Friday, June the 13th, Friday the 13th. So anybody that's interested, golfing, wonderful day. And our board now, since we've regionalized, we consist of 4 board members from Fort St. John, 3 from Dawson Creek, community coordinator out of Fort St. John, and an RCMP liaison in Dawson Creek. And we're looking to enhance our presence within the Dawson Creek community. One more avenue for people that want to get involved in helping the police solve crimes. Able to stay totally anonymous, and in the event of an arrest and conviction, there can be cash rewards of up to $2,000. Thank you for your support.
you know, thank you guys so much for the volunteer efforts that go on to help keep our community safer. And about 4 or 5 months ago, I had a conversation with Staff Sergeant Milo McDonald. And one of the stats that he told me about for our community in 2013 is that Dawson Creek did not have a single unsolved major crime in our community in 2013. And I thought, what a great message is that for us in terms of having we all want a safe community to live and raise our family and for our children. And to me, we're number 15 in the top small communities in Canada, recognized as such because of that, I think, because of efforts that volunteers put into our community to help make it safer. So on behalf of Mayor, Council, and citizens, I really appreciate the work that you guys have done in assisting in that endeavor. Thank you.
Thanks.
So next, you know, our next delegation that's here, and I just have to ask them to come forward and good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to City Hall. Everybody gets a hug. Good morning. Good morning. So I need to put on my sash because I am a proud member of the Métis Nation of British Columbia, and
That's nice.
and so I want to wear the sash in this proclamation. Whereas the Constitution of Canada recognizes the existing rights of Aboriginal people in Canada, and whereas in the Constitution of Canada, Aboriginal peoples of Canada include the Indian, Inuit, and Métis people of Canada. And whereas the Aboriginal people of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contributions to Canadian society, and it is considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark and celebrate these contributions and to recognize the different cultures of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada. And whereas many Aboriginal people celebrate the summer solstice, which has an important symbolism within their cultures. And whereas the Governor General of Canada has proclaimed June 21st of each year as National Aboriginal Day, now therefore I do hereby proclaim June 21st as National Aboriginal Day in Dawson Creek. So So if you guys would like to say a few words about the celebration?
On Saturday, June 21st, we will be holding a celebration up at KPAC, the old KPAC. And everybody is welcome, it's free of charge. We will be having some entertainment. We'll be having a hoop dancer, a couple of singers, hopefully jiggers. And our main attraction is gonna be an Elvis Presley impersonator.
Ooh.
So, yeah. And like I said, everybody's welcome, it's free of charge. We will have food, that's, oh yes, we also will be having a walk from our office, Aboriginal Family Services. That's in that little mini mall, I guess everybody knows where Noodle Hut is. So we'll be walking from there, and whoever wants to join us, all the way to KPAC. And that is coming from the Northern Health Authority. They give us some funding to do something in recognition of Aboriginal Day. And I think there are some more things that were gonna happen, like a scavenger hunt or something like that. Yes, I think that would be about it. Do you have any more to add? You're all welcome, everybody, yes?
What time do the events start?
Oh, yeah, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So we can get there before the red carpet.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming this morning. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your attendance, and we'll see you on the 21st.
Oh, and here are a couple of posters.
I think I got some that we got on City Hall, but I'll take some more.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank goodness. Because I'm sure this took forever to load.
So next, so next up in our delegation is Tom Moran from Dawson Creek Realty and Ann Clayton, Aspenville Property Services, are in attendance regarding a landowner Gary Loisel request for support of exclusion of land from the Agricultural Land Reserve. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome. And the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I've brought some supplemental material, which is just a list of available properties in Dawson Creek. With your permission, Mayor
Sure.
Bumstead. Thank you.
Brenda will hand them out for you, Ann.
Thanks very much, Brenda. We're here today to ask for your support in excluding this property you see here from the ALR. You're probably all familiar with it. It has topsoil stockpiled on it, and it's bounded by the extension of 8th Street on the west and what is a right-of-way for 4th Street on the east.
Sorry. Oh.
Probably have to do it from the computer.
Sure, if you don't mind just switching it. This property has some history. In 2011, it was excluded from the Agricultural Land Reserve, and it was conditional. Well, that's perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was conditional upon the inclusion of the 80 acres you see up in the northwest corner there. Now, what has happened subsequently, if you could flip to the next, is that property that was in the northwest corner there has been sold. So now the exclusion from the Agricultural Land Commission is no longer valid because it was conditional upon that inclusion. So what we are asking is council's support for excluding the subject property. Things have changed since 2011. There is more development going on, and I'm just going to turn it over to Tom to tell you about the development immediately east of the subject.
Yeah, we have, there's 70 acres to the east that's out of the LR that we've hired an engineering firm out of Edmonton's been hired to develop it. It's going to be, it's been taken out of the LR with the understanding it'll be commercial property. We have 2 already developments planned for the start on it. And to develop that property, we have to build 4th Street right through, all the way through. And so that's going to take the landowners on the adjoining property, which we're trying to get taken out of the LR, are going to have to build their portion of that road and bring down the services. One of the things we've done in the 70 acres that's coming out of the LR, it's got to go into commercial. It hasn't been any industrial use yet. It's only been commercial. And the huge demand right now is for industrial. We have on the subject property, the 120 acres that we're trying to get taken out of the LR, we have a potential buyer for it who is doesn't want to wants to be disclosed right now, but they are basically an end user for that property, where they have they're in the oil and gas industry. They know what's going to be needed in Dawson Creek in the next while. We don't really know. I just hear figures thrown around that, you know, the oil and gas industry could be 7-fold what it is right now. And industrial land is going to be in really high demand. And I know the process it takes to get this property out of the LR into, for instance, on the 70 acres, we think that's going to take us a year from now before we can have it ready for development. It takes a long time once anything gets in the pipeline to have it available and ready. And we just feel by developing that 70 acres beside it, the landowners have talked and are prepared to work together to develop the, you know, whatever services and roads and infrastructure that are needed. They'll work together on it. And to us, it only makes sense that we work on this now and get this started now, because you know, if we don't have the industrial land, we're not going to be able to have some of the business that is looking to relocate in Dawson Creek.
In the material that I've given you, it shows you what industrial land there is available. As you all know, GreenSmart is available, but the location of the building there makes it not feasible for developing highway frontage acreage. The other industrial land that's available in the airport industrial park, much of it has airport height restrictions, and so it can't be built on. And that's a real limit, and that's along Rosella Boric Way there. That's a real limit. Not only that, those are very small properties there. There isn't so much demand for 1 acre industrial properties. When you're looking at an oil and gas operation, people are looking for larger acreage, at least 5 acres. So the subject property is very suitable for a larger development. One of the difficulties that we have is there is a big piece of property that's been identified in the South Peace Fringe Area Plan, and that is up on the Water Treatment Road, and it's owned by Carter's. It is currently listed for sale, and Carter's themselves will not be developing it because it was one of the properties that was identified by the Agricultural Land Commission as suitable for development. It's been sitting there. People can't do anything with it unless they buy the whole thing. What's happened is the Agricultural Land Reserve has basically put a damper on development. Now, fortunately, we have Bill 24 has just been passed, and there will be changes coming to the ALR, to the regulations and what can be done, what can be approved in Zone 2, which Dawson Creek and the Peace River area is part of. But what we are asking for is council's support in allowing development of a piece of property that's in a key location so that we are ready at the time that we have an influx of industrial buyers. If we don't, we're looking at them going elsewhere, and that's something that we don't want to do. Any questions for
So,
us?
thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The property that has now been sold, but was originally sort of the 80 acres that was to be included, what is the zoning of that now?
That's the property, the previous, that was residential.
Residential?
That's down behind Canelta.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And one thing the 70-acre piece, which is next to the piece that you
Correct.
asked in council support
Yep.
for. I'm just curious, why would the ALR Commission designate it commercial without really talking to, I'm assuming not talking to the local people who know what the needs are and making it industrial?
Well, at the time when it was brought in, I mean, this was probably 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago when it was brought in. We thought there would be more demand for commercial land than industrial land. There is, the frontage part of it being highway commercial, we definitely want commercial. We might make sense to try to redo our application and maybe have some of the back property be industrial. But as of right now, that the LR have approved it as commercial only. So we might be able to do highway commercial and maybe a service commercial. I don't know the whole process that way, but
Okay, but 3 years
the
ago,
industrial
it was an
land,
appropriate
before there was industrial land available, there was,
Yeah.
the Hanson's Quarter, there was down by the airport, there was a lot of industrial land,
Yeah,
but
but
there
that's
is,
all gone.
it's gone.
Right.
It's truly gone. There's
Yeah.
nothing left.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? So thank you for that. We'll, this item then now comes back under Mayor's business for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
I still have no agenda.
Tyra?
So next up, we have a delegation, item 6-4. We have Greg Raitt, Andrew Hall, Blaine Nicholson, and Joe Modishaw in attendance regarding a request to amend the OCP zoning for Harvest View subdivision. Now, the mayor is directly, in my view, impacted as a result of this because I do own a home directly attached to it. So I'm going to remove myself from the process because of that potential perceived conflict. So Councillor Parslow, as acting mayor, will be taking the chair.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So you'd like to proceed with your presentation or talk to your letter or however you'd like to proceed.
Okay. Just like to make note that we delivered this same information to the council. Everyone
Mhm.
should have a copy of it, I imagine. We've been sent here as representatives of Greg Raitt and Pat Rorson, who are developing the land up north of 85th Avenue there. And we just wanted to talk about how the original development of this land, or the neighborhood plan of this area, wasn't done necessarily by all just local people. It was done by people from the Lower Mainland who had a different kind of idea of what a city should look like maybe than what a small community like Dawson Creek might actually look like when it's finally done. The 210 road, which is north of where these apartment buildings would be proposed to be done, isn't necessarily a major hub road that separates two separate communities and has bus routes and everything else available. And so it may be difficult to try and separate and set new bus routes out just for apartments on the very far edge of town. we've seen apartments go up in town, but they're generally in more centralized locations, like by Core Lanes there. You know, everyone who lives there doesn't need a car, which is what the OCP kind of is going towards. You know, more pedestrian traffic, more transit traffic. And we feel like when you build an apartment on the very outskirts of town, it kind of separates from that. It kind of forces people to drive to the grocery store, forces people to drive to work, to wherever they have to be. And so maybe high density in these locations is maybe not quite beneficial to the community as it could be somewhere else where these routes are already well established. We also got into a little bit of how there's some property up there already for higher density living, and I was going to bring that over to Blaine.
I think probably a lot of the people in the room here were involved in the planning stages of that OCP, the charrette that went, I think it took place in either 08 and 09. And
Earlier.
Was it
It's
earlier than that? Was this?
wasn't
It was right around that. Oh, wait.
I think it was 08 and 09 that the
it?
charrette took place. I think the official community plan came out in 2010. And I remember going to those meetings and attending all those sessions, and it was an extremely good process to be going through. But I think what's happened is that when I was at those meetings, I was looking at this plan and I was thinking, wow, wouldn't that be something that we could get to that at some point in time? And I think from that time until now, I had no idea at the time that it would happen so fast. And looking at that plan now with different eyes, with a different viewpoint, from the experience that we've had from 08, 09 up until now, to see the transition in the 17th Street Crescent View subdivision up there, it's fairly high density up there right now. We didn't have any plans when we put that in there to have all those duplexes and all those suites. And I think the viewpoint that we were looking at when we saw that proposal, the official community plan that is now actually in place, was that it would be many, many years down the road that it would take place. And we weren't looking at it truly with the eyes that we could look at it with now. I think when you do, like Joe was saying, when you go to communities like Grand Prairie, if you drive there, their apartment buildings are located more in the central area. You don't drive into Grand Prairie and see the apartment buildings on the very outskirt limits of the city. They're more on the inside of the community. And I think that was one of the things, looking at that official community plan in 08 and 09, no one really noticed. And I think, to overemphasize my point, I think if a person were to do a plan in 1939 and try and institute the ideas of that plan today, wouldn't make any sense. And that's an overemphasis of my point. But the point, I think, is that when all the input went into this plan, the plan that was presented and created by someone from the Lower Mainland who's used to doing these things in highly developed adjoining communities to large centers, it made lots of sense. But for Dawson Creek to have an apartment building on the outskirts, on the very far limits of the community, just doesn't seem to make sense.
I'd like to add too that with the lower density housing of single family or smaller multifamily units, there'll be more room to put in the walking trails and everything like that the city wants, and more room for nicer views and things like that. Like, if you live on the north side of Road 210 now, and all of a sudden there's a big apartment building across the road from you, you lose your whole viewscape of the community, and likely quite a bit of value into your property as well. Also, I know from living in Kelowna personally, when you go walking along the walking trails, it's really nice when you're not boxed in by big, tall buildings. It's quite nice when you can kind of see the sky around you, and just, you feel like you're kind of in nature as opposed to in the city. I'm not really sure we have much else to add. You got something else?
I don't have anything here from the Agricultural Land Commission people, but I would venture to take a guess that the Agricultural Land Commission people would take another look at this, and at least they should take another look at this, so that we can have their input. Back then we had input from landowners, from developers, from council people, from interested parties, from the City of Dawson Creek, and from the Agricultural Land Commission. And I think now would be another good chance to get all those people, all those stakeholders back together and making another decision and making possibly a change to what they thought things should be back in 08, 09.
Okay. Anything further, Joe, Blaine?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay. Councillor, any questions?
Yeah, so that area you're saying is not suitable for higher densities. Is there like some big piece of property in the center of town that I'm not aware of that's suitable for those apartment buildings?
I don't know that there's really all that much demand for apartment buildings right now with the Montney development taking place. I think they're finishing off their third apartment building down by Core Lanes. I've had an acre of land for sale down by the Rotary Village next to the creek and the walking path. Beautiful piece of property. I tried selling that for 2 or 3 years for an apartment development or for a higher density development, and wasn't able to sell it. I think it seems that when these oil patch guys come here, they're more into these, as everyone has noticed, into these duplexes and suites and that sort of thing.
Any other questions? So, as you know, this matter will be considered later on in the agenda. But as I understand, you're suggesting that this portion of the original plan, and I agree with what you said, Blaine, around the excellence of the process with those charades, that should be revisited in light of experience. That we've all been surprised by the rate of development, and we need to look at this, in your opinion, through a new lens, the lens of that experience. And so that will be considered. But I thought I heard you say also you're wondering if the groups who were involved in those charades should perhaps be brought back together to work on that. Is that correct?
I would think, being that the charrette was put together by so many different people, I think those people who put that together should now have another look at it. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So people like the Agricultural Land Commission, I'm not sure, we've attempted to contact them, and unfortunately they're not quick with their responses. But I think they should have another say in it, being that they were probably the main component of that charrette process that took place. And again, I can't emphasize how good a process that was. We would not be in the situation that we are right now with development taking place up there unless that charrette did take place.
Right.
And so I just want a little bit of a tweaking to what took place there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and this will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. I'll just skip.
What's that?
We need that. We haven't used that yet, Your Worship.
Angela, the remote's not
Now you
working.
owe Angela a hug and hurt her feelings.
Yeah? We might need it, it's not working. Yeah.
You want to take a quick 2-minute,
Yes.
5-minute break while
Yes.
Five.
Sorry.
Maybe take the other thing out, I mean, I didn't do
Do I have time to go outside, Your Worship?
Yes, you do.
We're on to item 6.5 on our agenda. With the delegation this morning, we have Keith Maurer from the School District 59, Brian Bird from representing Shell Canada, and Brad Lyon representing Northern Lights College in regards. They're in attendance. We're going to have a presentation on the 12-year partnership with the Northern Opportunities, which is a partnership with School District 59, 60, 81, Northern Lights College, and some of the major industry folks in our region. So welcome, good morning, thank you for coming this morning, and the floor is yours.
Well, good morning. Just on behalf of Northern Opportunities, we would like to ensure that the councils in the region have a firm understanding as to what this partnership represents, the good work that's been done over the last 12 years in transitioning students from high school into trades trained in the north to stay in the north. And then looking past just the trades, we have also been working to transition students into a wide range of careers. So this partnership, which represents major industry in the area, the school districts, and the college, has had a major impact and really is going to be, I think, the foundation for us moving forward as we try to ensure we have the workers needed as growth moves forward in our area.
And for those of you who don't know, that was Keith. I'm Brad. This is Bryant. He's now going to join me for moral support. And for the rest of this presentation, I guess I'll be doing the majority of the talking, and then if there's any questions at the end, any of us should be able to provide some answers for you. Your Worship, Council, thank you for the opportunity to talk today about the Northern Opportunities Partnership. And just to go a little further on Keith's introduction as to why we're here, 3 main reasons that we're here today. We want to update and inform you about the activities and the growth of Northern Opportunities. We want to present you with a copy of what we call the export model. It's a significant document that summarizes the history and growth of Northern Opportunities. I don't think it was included in your agenda package, but if it wasn't, we have saved a few trees because it's a 54-page document, and we have it on data sticks for everyone that we'll leave at the end. And we also, to wrap up, want to thank you for your support in the past and to ask for your continued support as we prepare to go forward into what may be a bit of a difficult time for Northern Opportunities. Keith mentioned it in his introduction. Trained in the North to stay in the North. That's why Northern Opportunities exists. The partners who comprise the Northern Opportunities Partnership share the same passion for Northeastern BC that everyone around this council table, and I think probably everyone in this room right now, does. And of course, when you're asked if you're passionate about Northeastern BC, we know that everyone here says yes. Northern Opportunities is not a program. It is a concept involving the collaboration of many partners to create and provide opportunities for high school students to train and transition into career pathways. And that focus is reflected in our mission and vision, and you can see those on the screen. I won't read through them for you. A bit of history about how Northern Opportunities came about. We are into our 12th year, but it dates back to 2002, when the Northeast BC Learning Council was created as a result of a meeting spearheaded by Duke Energy, which is now Spectra. Duke was concerned about projected labor shortages. And I guess some themes never really do change for us here in the Northeast. These regional challenges were the motivation for the creation of the Northern Opportunities Partnership. And partnership is the key word. We are a volunteer organization, a collaboration of industry, secondary and post-secondary education institutions, Aboriginal organizations, and governments, all with the goal of developing a diverse, sustainable, and livable region. Sorry, the logos aren't bigger, but there is an overview of our current partners. And I think it's important to note the industry logos and presence of Bryant with Shell representing our industry partners today. Industry has stepped up to support financially and in many other ways the Northern Opportunities Partnership. They're actively involved. Also of note is the Northern Development Trust is included here because that organization has been very important in our recent successes by being willing to expand its normal funding parameters in previous years in accepting our applications for operating fund support. So the export model that you'll have a chance to review when you have time to read 54 pages is part of our commitment to develop an outline of who we are, what makes us work, so that groups in other areas of the region that are served by Northern Development, as well as throughout the province, can learn from the trials, tribulations, and successes that we've experienced. The focus of Northern Opportunities is to provide seamless transitions between education and careers, whether that career is trades, vocational, or university transfer focused. Students can get a head start on their post-secondary education, training, and career. This means more students stay in school. By providing the opportunities, knowledge, and experience they need to be successful. And the important thing about that is they're doing that while they're staying here in their home communities. Again, sorry for the small print on the slide, but this is a summary, one of the pages right out of the export model that lists all of the current programs and courses that are available for dual credit programming in conjunction between the school districts and Northern Lights College. And dual credit is probably the term most commonly associated with Northern Opportunities. Dual credit programming, as Keith mentioned, involves school districts 59, 60, and 81, and Northern Lights College working together so that students in grades 11 and 12 can gain credits in their secondary school studies and at the same time at the post-secondary level. As Keith mentioned, dual credit was originally focused on the trades because of that concern for skilled workers. But now it's expanded to include academic courses and programs, vocational programs, including programs such as healthcare and early childhood education, because I think as we all realize, healthy and successful communities in the Northeast also need workers in our service sectors as well. Our students and graduates are proof that dual credit works and that the opportunities made available through Northern Opportunities are worthwhile. The quotes that you see on the screen were gathered during interviews to complete the export model, and I think they provide a very good summary of what the students take from dual credit. And as always, the numbers don't lie either, and there's a much more detailed statistical package with some charts and summaries in the report, but basically the numbers show dual credit works. Dual credit has benefits to all of the various partner groups that are involved. First, from the student and parent perspective, students have post-secondary courses built right into their schedule while they're still in high school, and they receive credit for both high school and college. Students can live at home and pursue their careers within their communities when their education and training is complete. And the school districts have made arrangements with Northern Lights College to pay the tuition costs. And that makes it simply much more affordable for students and parents. From the perspective of the region, employers, municipal councils, students receive their training and education without leaving home. They're trained in the north to work at jobs located in the north, and that's one of the key themes that runs throughout what we do with Northern Opportunities. On Tuesday, April 29th, the provincial government announced BC's Skills for Jobs Blueprint, Re-engineering Education and Training. Very long title for a very significant document. Many of the themes outlined, or that the blueprint outlined, and that were outlined by Ministers Bond, Verk, Rustad, and Fassbender, are the themes that have been central to Northern Opportunities for our 12 years of existence. The following themes were included in the media release, or the background or documents that were released with the blueprint. Key phrases such as learning to earning, Head Start to hands-on learning in our schools, a meaningful role for industry and employers, expanding dual credits in our schools to get students trained quicker, applied skills curriculum in grades K to 9 should excite and prepare students, informing and engaging parents, teachers, and counselors about training. All things that, if you were to talk to anyone who's been involved with Northern Opportunities, that have been key elements. And then the quote on the slide on the screen from Minister of Advanced Education, Amrik Verk. This quote could have been uttered by anyone involved with Northern Opportunities in describing the goals of our partnership. So, that's where we are today. Where do we go to from here? The reality is, it sounds like the future should be very bright. That there should be a rosy future with a prominent role for Northern Opportunities as we go forward. We've had meetings with various ministers, and it's obvious that these meetings and what we've said has been heard because it's reflected in the themes of the blueprint. However, the Northern Development Trust funding that I mentioned earlier is finished, and those meetings with ministers and other provincial officials to secure sustained annual operational funding for Northern Opportunities have yet to yield any results. Everyone agrees that we have a great product, and if the blueprint's any indication, we're obviously following the model, if not blazing the trail, that the province is envisioning over the next 10 to 20 years. But so far, positive comments are all that have been forthcoming. So for Northern Opportunities for 2014-15, our operational costs, they're going to be covered from our reserves. And that's the money that our key industry partners, who you remember seeing their logos on the earlier slide, pay into Northern Opportunities when they join. And those really are intended for special projects. Unfortunately, we're now using them to sustain us. We project the amount in the reserves should sustain us for probably another year, maybe two if we can do a really good job of stretching the dollars. Our question is what happens when that reserve runs dry? And unfortunately, as noted on this slide, the reality is that Northern Opportunities at some point in the not too distant future could cease to exist. So our purpose here today is not to ask for money, although if you have a few dollars to spare, we won't turn it down. But we do need your help. When you have the chance, if you can review the export model, it does include a lot of information, statistics, details, and quotes about the successes of the Northern Opportunities Partnership. And if you could then let your contacts in Victoria and wherever else in the province know that Northern Opportunities is important to the future of this community. In 2013, we celebrated the first decade of Northern Opportunities and the successes experienced by the region's students, schools, employers, and communities. We do want to celebrate a 20th or 25th anniversary, but to do so, we're going to need your help. A few names on the screen. Jeff is our industry co-chair. Doug Boyd with School District 60 is our education co-chair on the Learning Council. Cheryl is our program director. She sort of keeps us organized and going in the right direction. We've got the representatives from School District 59, from Shell, from Northern Lights College that we introduced to start with. You can, if you have questions after the meeting or as we go forward, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to provide some answers. And as I mentioned at the outset, in case we forgot, thank you for your support of Northern Opportunities, dual credit programming, and most importantly, the students who are our current and future workers in Northeast British Columbia.
Thank you, Brian. And Keith and Brian, thank you. Does anyone have questions? Councillor Parslow?
Yes. Hi, Brad. Good to see you. These figures you had up there, I've got it in front of me here. The numbers don't lie, 2009 to 13.
Yes.
That's,
Right there.
That one. I just got a little confused. I think this is for the Northeast region, right?
Yes, this
The
is
Northern Lights College,
actually.
yeah.
I'll get Keith maybe to. He's a little more familiar with the numbers. I'll get Keith to step forward on that.
The question is, those figures are for the Northern Lights College region?
Well, it's for the region of Northern Opportunities.
So is that Northwest as well?
Northern Lights College region goes beyond our Northern Opportunities region. So we're really the Peace region from here right up to Fort Nelson.
Yes, so those figures.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't include like the Northwest College.
No. No.
It'd be the three districts, 81, 59.
Just those three
66.
school districts, yeah.
So students within those three districts.
Yeah. Is there any, the reading the literature about Alberta school dropouts has the highest dropout rate in the country. And that is often purported because there's so many well-paying jobs. Why bother hanging around in school and get a trade when you can get such a high-paying job without the education? Do we have a high dropout rate in our region for similar reasons?
We have, if I were to take a look at our traditional system of schooling, where we have focused very well since its inception on students who are pursuing an academic path that would move to university. And the design of the system being one of compliance in classroom, a teacher in front of students. What are we doing with the other 80% of students? So if I take a look at what's happening and has been happening in these districts for the last 12 years and is increasing, is a far more focused look on a broad education and an engaging education for all students. And that involves working with community, working with industry, providing hands-on learning opportunities for students who may not be really wired to sit in a classroom, but have tremendous horsepower. And we see this every year with the results from dual credit students and the comments they give back to us, that their passion was awakened when they stepped into a dual credit program. And instead of sitting at a desk understanding the ratios of springs, studied that in a class of heavy duty mechanics, and then stepped into the shop and actually applied what they were learning to the rebuilding of some heads. So that type of practical application is no less academic, but it's certainly engaging and inspiring for students. So that is a long-winded answer to we have never been happy with our grad rates sitting as static as they are. We believe 100% of our students should be able to graduate with a meaningful and distinguished graduation. That's something that's really meaningful for them and moves them into our community.
Well, supplementary to that is the fact that, I mean, these dual credit programs are wonderful, in my opinion as well. Absolutely great. So let me ask the question another way. Is the college having challenges getting its programs with a reasonable enrollment for these people after they, let's say, begin into their graduation year? Are they not continuing at college? Are they going straight into the workforce? Because I have heard that there's problems in getting good enrollment in some of the trades programs at the college.
Could I step in here for a minute? From the industry perspective, I think what you may be looking at is past practice. I can speak slightly on behalf of industry, but keep in mind that I am a voice for Shell. Is we are looking at a different way of doing things. We are not intentionally trying to push people from school into the industry. We want them to complete and have they need the basic skills of what is being taught in high school and in their first and second year apprenticeship. We are pushing our employers who have said that learning from the school of hard knocks is not the way to do things. And so the graduation rates may be stagnant right now, but the expectation is that the people that we want need to complete these type of pre-employment programs so that they will ultimately be successful and be safer and healthier working in the industry field. So I'm hoping that helps and put that into a little bit more perspective.
And from this perspective of the college and programming numbers, to take a look at some of a selection of some of our program offerings, things like power engineering, oil and gas field operator. Power engineering for the September intake in 2014 has a waiting list of, I believe it's 32. There's 16 in the class. And the program was filled probably in December. Oil and gas field operator, we offer it twice a year consistently, a waiting list for each of the intakes. Same with our electrical foundation and our electrical apprenticeship programs and instrumentation as well. Welding, we've got numbers that are sufficient to bring another instructor on as well this year. So, so numbers-wise, are all of them that robust? No, not quite, but we've got some numbers that are very, very, very impressive in certain areas.
So, thank you. I'm afraid we have to move because I've got an appeal hearing that has to start at 10 o'clock. So thank you for coming this morning and providing us with an update on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, where's BCIT? How's BCIT involved?
They're still involved they're still a partner from when they were involved with Southeast.
Is that 6-9?
Oh, I got you.
The animal control?
They're still active.
Good.
Yeah. So we have, unfortunately, we've only got about 5 minutes before we have to start an appeal hearing. And I don't want to cut you guys off Can you? Okay, perfect. So, item 6.6, we have Kathleen Connolly, Executive Director of the Chamber, and Jeremy Earl, President of the Chamber of Commerce, are in attendance regarding a downtown parking bylaw.
Thank you very much. Morning, Your Worship. Thank you, Council, for hearing us out today. We appreciate your time. So I will try and be quick as we're under the gun. So this is, we're addressing you today as a follow-up to a letter we sent your way at the end of May regarding parking bylaw, section 323. And we're requesting that you, in the not too distant future, consider amending the bylaw based on some of the feedback we've received from members and non-members and fellow stakeholders, business owners, building owners in the downtown core with respect to the 2-hour time limit on parking. Many of the, as our business needs have evolved and grown over the last few years, many of the businesses in the downtown core around professional services like legal, accounting, aesthetics, stuff like that, find the 2-hour ceiling to be insufficient to the needs of them and their clients. In addition, we've heard from tourism that the 2-hour time limit is can at times be a deterrent to tourists who are looking to park downtown and explore the community, peruse the shops, go for a drink, stop for a coffee, things of that nature. In addition, and this is directly based on the letter the city sent to business owners on the 24th of April, advising them that it was going to be the lots and the 2-hour limit was going to begin being enforced. The inconsistency of having the bylaw enforced for only half the year when the weather allows for it is frustrating as people develop parking habits, which they then have to essentially retrain themselves, or when they have to change every 6 months is disruptive to them and their business. There were also issues, we received feedback with respect to how the access to parking is greatly reduced in the winter as snow is, excess snow is often piled in the available lots for eventual removal, but given the winter we've had, that can sometimes take some time, and it is disruptive. And then the retailers downtown find that with the growth of professional services downtown, more of the street parking that is intended for their customers is being utilized by employees, making it somewhat difficult for people to park and access their businesses. So, I mean, that's more or less the gist of it. We've got a couple recommendations based on our preliminary discussions. How am I doing for time? Okay. So we would urge Mayor and Council to consider the request from Mr. Charles Cooks-Cardos with respect to the lot that the Alaska was previously at for using it for auxiliary parking as a short-term temporary solution to move vehicles off the street. And secondly, we would urge you to engage in some direct stakeholder, maybe an open house or something like that with some of the downtown business, or even just a roundtable discussion. We realize it's the kind of issue where you're never going to please everyone, but we think the 2-hour limits, I mean, it's great to have free parking as opposed to paid parking, but with paid parking, if you do need more than 2 hours, you can always go reload the meter, whereas the 2-hour time limit doesn't leave people with a lot of options. So having said that, Kathleen or myself is available for any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We got 1 minute before our appeal hearing. Thank you, Jeremy, Kathleen.
Can we use it for a hug?
We have the letter, so we'll bring it back under Mayor's business. And we appreciate you guys coming in this morning.
Thank you very much.
Jeremy thought the 1 minute could be used for a hug.
So we have item 6.9 now. We have an appeal hearing for a vicious dog designation. Mr. Rogan Curry is in attendance. Yes, come in.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for your time. My name's Rogan Curry. I have a 1.5-year-old German Shepherd. he's been deemed dangerous. 3 weeks ago, there was a windstorm and the gate broke, I think, and he went next door and nipped at a child, I think, the boy next door. There's some history between the boy and the dog, and this. He has a sister too, and they're both pretty bad for teasing Rev. The dog's name's Rev. They throw things at him, they scream at him, they pretty much just torment him. They're kind of at that age where they don't really understand how to treat dogs. I have a couple letters here, one from a lady that used to walk Rev, and another from the kennel where we board Rev when we take vacations. Both of them pretty much outline that he's never even been aggressive to any small dogs or anything that's any people ever. Like I've never seen him be aggressive, and neither have they. I just don't feel like he should be painted as a danger to anyone, because he's definitely not. When he's not being abused by the child next door. I've already spoken to his parents about that, and I know I caught him probably 8 or 9 times, sticking stuff through the fence or poking at Rev with a stick, or they throw snowballs over in the winter and stuff. And I just don't think it's fair to paint him in that light when he's, under normal circumstances, he's pretty much just a relaxed, happy dog. And that's about all I got to say.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, I've missed it. I thought I read it, but I can't find it. What's the age of the dog?
1.5 years.
Year and a half. So it's still a puppy.
Yeah. And the wounds in the child, like I went the day after I went next door, and they were, I don't even think it didn't even draw blood or anything. It was kind of, in my opinion, he was probably trying to play, or he was, trying to warn him to say no, stop, because the kid will. I've seen him do it multiple times, right, where he kind of pokes at his eyes through the fence, or so.
So we have the SPCA in attendance. I'd like to hear if we can have the SPCA officer provide their information to council on it as well, please. Yep. Councillor Wilbur.
I'm just wondering if we could also get a copy
want
of
me to
those
move them?
letters.
Sure.
I can
Sure,
make
yeah.
a copy of them.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Morning. Hi there, my name's Aaron Avey. I'm the Animal Control Officer for the City of Dawson Creek. And for starters, I would like to assert that the bites were not just nipping. I have some photographs of the injuries if I should pass those around.
We have
them.
My name is Wendy Davies. I'm the branch manager of the BCSPCA in the City of Dawson Creek and represent the city as a bylaw officer.
Thank you. So can you give us a bit of an overview of the your investigation into the incident?
Yeah, if I could refer to my notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the 15th of May at 15:54 hours, I received a phone call on the ACO mobile phone from Califo Ray, stating that his grandchildren had been bit by a German Shepherd type dog while walking home from school. When I arrived on the scene, the dog was in the driveway of 9813 2nd Street and showed obvious signs of human aggression. The dog was growling and excuse me. The dog was growling and snarling and actually charged at me. The complainant, Ray, the grandfather of the victims, and Sandy, the mother of the victims, were able to confirm that the dog resided at 9813 2nd Street, and I was able to temporarily contain the dog in its fence. This dog was seriously aggressive. I deal with dogs on a daily basis, and I would say that this is definitely the most aggressive dog that I have ever encountered. I actually had to call for backup on this one due to the aggressive nature of the dog. After the dog was contained, like I said, I called Wendy Davis for backup and spoke with the complainant, and the children were taken to the hospital where their wounds were assessed, and they definitely had drawn blood. Wendy was able to contact the owner of the dog when she arrived on scene, and we set to work securing the dog because the latch on the fence was broken. We moved some tires in front of the fence and a propane tank in front of the fence, and while we were moving the tires, the dog was attacking them through the fence.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Wilbur?
I'm just wondering, so you guys have more history in looking after dogs than I do, and you get calls. So is there a possibility that the animal was distraught and showing aggression that way, that the animal was upset and protecting its property? Like, are those any issues that would be taken into consideration?
I can definitely speak to that. I've been employed by the BCSPCA for more than 5 years. I am a qualified dog assessor. I have taken our dog assessment course, and I've been handling dogs for more than 5 years at our local SPCA. And the answer to that is no, that most dogs that we attend property on do not behave this way. Most dogs that come into the shelter do not behave this way. I can state that as animal owners, that my previous experience dealing with aggressive dogs, that most of the time the animal owner is not aware of the behavior of the animal when they're not home. So the behavior that we're seeing apart from the owner is not what the animal owner sees. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yes. Councillor Schumann?
Wendy, if he's designated a dangerous dog, what are the implications to the dog? Like,
So what that requires is that the animal owner ensures that the animal is secured on their property at all times in a manner that would prevent the dog from leaving the property and inflicting injury upon another person or animal. That they would have a muzzle on the dog when they have it off of their property. So it's simply a matter of public safety at that point.
Excuse me, does that mean like tethered leash to the?
No,
or is that just the fence secured?
That means you have to have your fence secured in a manner that would prevent the dog from leaving your property. Is that in fact against the law to permanently tether a dog in the city of Dawson?
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, I must have read it wrong then. 'Cause I thought it.
so, for me, I think if the children next door have been tormenting this dog, I don't see how this dog, I mean, he's probably a smart dog or whatever, but I don't know how he would distinguish that child from another child. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would worry that if he's been tormented by, I mean, we had a dog once that was tormented by a certain person, type of person, and that dog really disliked those people, and so I would have concerns that if he's been tormented by little people, that he might be
predisposed to
be aggressive towards little people.
Yes.
So.
And I would like to point, when I arrived on scene, that there was no children around, and the dog was snarling, charging at us. We were required to use catch poles to back the dog into the property, and then required 2 of us to secure the gate and move tires in front of the gate to secure it, at which time the dog was actually biting the tires and ripping at the tires through the crack in the fence. So we were not little people, and obviously experienced people with animals, and this dog was behaving aggressively towards us.
I deal with fearfully aggressive dogs on a daily basis, and this was like nothing I had ever seen before, the level of aggression.
Councillor McFadden?
When you arrived, the dog was loose in the driveway?
The dog was in fact loose in the driveway.
Okay, and where were the children? Were they on the street, in the driveway, or in the backyard, or?
The children were in the house with their grandfather.
No, but when they were apparently bitten, where were they? On the street or the driveway, or?
All I'm aware of is that they were walking home from school, so where exactly their route took them, I'm not privy to that information.
I think that they come through there's a back alley. I think that they probably come through there. I think that's the closest way.
And is your yard fenced reasonably well?
It's probably like 6-foot fence. It's fine. The latch had blown apart in the
I guess one concern I have is this dog is only 18 months old. That's pretty young, and if it's showing these aggressive signs now, who knows what'll happen when it's 5 or 6. That's a concern that I have.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Parslow?
Just perhaps reiterate for me what this designation means from the point of view of applications with the dog, the dangerous dog designation.
What does it mean?
Yes.
It simply means that the owner is now aware that this animal has caused injury and caused a threat to the public of the city of Dawson Creek, and that person is therefore, from this point forward, required to ensure that that animal is prevented from, causing injury to another person or animal.
Yeah. Did you not mention muzzled?
When the dog is off the property, the dog must be in the owner's control or the control of a person responsible and muzzled to prevent it from injuring someone.
Thank you, Andy.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any further comments? So now it's council's responsibility in an appeal hearing to vote as to whether you're going to remove the sanction of the dangerous vicious dog designation and or support it. So are you ready for the question, Councillor Parslow?
I'm prepared to make a motion. Or is that what you wanted?
Yes. Thank you.
I'm prepared to move that this 2-year-old or this German, the subject dog, be designated a dangerous dog.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. So the designation will go with your dog, Mr. Rogan. And if you need any clarification in terms of the criteria around that, what it means.
Actually, they gave me a copy.
Okay, great. And if you have any questions, then please ensure to get to our bylaw enforcement or the SPCA.
Okay, great.
Thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Next up, we have item 6.7, David Siemens and Barry Raynard. And I don't think Barry's here this morning, so we got Mr. Duncan Redford.
Second best, sorry.
And we're going to get an update on our tree maintenance program. And you know, it's we see, and I'm sure all of council get a bit of update and contact over the time in terms of people in the community seeing the red paint or the orange paint on some of the trees and saying, okay, well, what's the impacts to that, and what's your tree maintenance program? And so we thought it would be, since I've been 7 or 8 months here, I've never had that opportunity to get that update. So really appreciate the opportunity to be able to give not only ourselves as council an update, but the community an update on our tree maintenance program. And so that's our folks that are the experts in the field, and welcome.
So that's David you're talking about, not me. So,
My
just
wing-
to bring
my
it in and
wingman,
build off
Dave.
that, yeah, that's why he's here. To build off that a little bit, yeah. So we wanted to just take an opportunity. We're getting into the summer months, and we're getting into our season here, and just talk about inspection, and just talk about how and when we do those inspections. Talk about removal and what that entails, and just get into the replacement. And talk about how we replace and how we select what we're going to replace with. And David is our gardener / horticulturalist and is an expert in this area and has looked after the trees in our city for quite a few years now. And I'm here to back him up.
Wingman.
Yeah, I'm his wingman. There you go.
Good morning, David. Thanks for coming.
As you may know, we do annual inspections in the spring and as needed throughout the year, and we are experiencing an abnormal amount of tree losses at this moment. It started out with pine beetle kill, in which 90% plus of our pine, our lodgepole pine and Scots pine, were decimated. And currently we are looking at decimation of our northwest poplar. And what the Northwest poplar is essentially a hybrid, I believe, from the United States Forest Service out of North Dakota, and was hybridized in the 1960s as an effort as a forestry tree. It's a hybrid between balsam poplar and eastern cottonwood,
And so it's directly related to our balsam poplar along our creek corridor. And those trees naturally have bacterial wetwood in them. And so because of the fact that it's a hybrid between the eastern between the balsam poplar and the eastern cottonwood, it's very similar to the balsam poplar we have here. So they're easily infected from the trees along the corridor. And normally we wouldn't have experienced the losses that we're seeing quite as dramatically as we are now. However, we have in the past had drought for several years, which plays a significant role in the bacterial wetwood spread, because during the summer months when the trees require a lot of water to combat the bacterial wetwood, and just to be clear, there is no cure for the bacterial wetwood. However, the symptoms can be reduced through water, but we didn't have that, so it weakened the trees quite a bit more significantly, so they're showing a lot more signs of the bacterial wetwood. So what we're looking for when we're going out there and looking at these trees is shrunken bark, bacterial ooze seeping out of old wounds, and lesions that have opened up in the trees. And so we're taking kind of a proactive approach to dealing with these trees at the moment in ensuring the public safety the best we can, and basically looking at what's best economically for the city as far as going in there. And if we see that the bark is starting to shrink, and we know that the bacterial or ooze is seeping out of the tree, and what we try to do is look at the economics in between, whether taking the tree down at the moment is appropriate, and trying to look at public image as well. So upon saying that, it is a significant issue we're going through right now. It's probably not going to improve. Saving the trees that are currently there can become a safety hazard depending on how they're pruned, because pruning is never an appropriate solution for aesthetics. So we try to stay away from pruning as much as possible, because all that does is open up more wounds. And so in the future, what we need to do is we need to really put in place, right now we have a program for tree replacements. We have $15,000 per year, not including labor and equipment. It has been appropriate in the past, and because of the significance of what's happening, I believe that it would need to be increased, and we need to procure and make sure that we have appropriate staffing as well as equipment to combat it. So far, we have replaced trees at Tremblay, as well as City Cemetery and on City Hall grounds. Kin Park is a big issue right now. I'm being asked quite a few questions about Kin Park. The situation there is grim. It's not looking any better. A few years ago, I thought about a plan for Kin Park. I was waiting for the reduction of the trees, so that way, because it was evident years ago that it was the case that they would be decimated. So we need to look further into the replacements and have a proper plan. I don't believe that just going in there and firing off and throwing some trees in there just for public image is the way to go. I think we need an appropriate plan to be set up, and that includes the rest of the city, Mile Zero Park, Rotary Lake. There's several issues in town, and we just need to address that, and we'll work hard to make sure it happens.
I'll jump in real quick. Sure. Just we have many trees in city property, and a lot of trees are planted by the city, and we document what we've planted. But there's a lot of trees that have also been planted on city property that didn't come from the city. When David selects a species of tree to plant, a lot of thought goes into that. He needs to look at the water availability and the likelihood that it's going to survive in our area. And I mean, it's a bit of a process. When we get into removal, it's not something that we take lightly. We don't want to remove trees, and we want to have the aesthetics and the longevity of these trees in our community. And it's really it gets to a point where, you know, there's hazards with the trees, associated with the trees, and there's not really, as David said, a lot of preventative measures we can do. So without water, that's really the biggest challenge. And as we get into more mature trees, we're really at nature's hand when it comes to that. But gets to the replacement, we do replace trees. The fall is the best. We're kind of at the point where we replace them whenever we have the resources, the staffing, and the weather to do so. So we kind of would like to do it in the fall, but we do it whenever we can. And this year our plan is really to focus on the exhibition grounds corridor over to the airport and some of the downtown core. I believe 102nd and 103rd, 102nd, 103rd, and some of those trees. So we are trying to take it off in sizable chunks, but as David said, we're getting into some larger scope projects such as the Kin, and we're looking at the Rotary inspection. There's a number of trees. I wouldn't ask David to tell us how many trees there are in town, but there's there's a number of trees, and they're going to require some work in the future.
Thank you, guys. So, Dave, sorry, you had one?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that as preventative measure, so you're aware, we do not plant Northwest poplar in this town anymore. We have trialed it at Newby Park, and it was in between the existing trees, so we were trying to fill in gaps at the time. But one thing that can happen, and I didn't realize at the time because I wasn't quite familiar with the disease, is that the bacterial ooze can drip off of the trees that are there, and also the bacterial wetwood goes through the soil as well, so it's easily transmitted in the areas where the disease is prevalent already. So we do no longer plant Northwest poplar.
Good. Councillor McFadden?
Thank you. That's very interesting, David. What's the name of this disease again?
Bacterial wetwood.
Bacterial wetwood. Okay, thank you. And I notice on, I think it's 110th that runs along Ken Park, almost every tree has got an orange ring painted around it. Does that mean they're diseased and they're going to have to come out, or?
That absolutely means that, and like I had said before, from an economic standpoint, it's hard to justify continuously removing a limb until you have a trunk left.
Yeah.
And so if the tree has been reduced to a point of 30% of the foliage left on the tree, or 20 or whatnot, it just economically doesn't make sense. And another thing that people do around town a lot of times I've noticed is heading back trees, which is poor practice, or removing limbs, and then what ends up happening is you have a lot of epicormics or water sprouts come up, and it can heavily wind load the tree and create another hazard there again. As far as along that street goes, sometimes if you don't get out and look at the tree itself, it can look as though the tree may be more healthy than it is because of the trees around it are more healthy than that particular tree, so it can have the appearance of being potentially more healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
So David, when are those trees coming down?
The trees are coming down as it depends on contractor availability. The work orders have been done for them. They're ready for them. When they have the availability, then they will be removed.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah. David, so you talked about a need for a plan.
Right.
Is that plan going to be something that we will receive in the next year or so?
If that's...
Yeah, well, sorry, I'll jump in. So, like I said, we're looking on the exhibition grounds, airport, 102nd, 103rd. This year it's important to get those trees removed just because we don't want to create a hazard while there isn't one. That'll be looking at our budgets. Once David has a plan of what species we're going to use and how we want to do that replacement, we can look at whether it's existing budget or if that'll require capital, and then make that decision in the fall.
The discussion of the last Mile Zero Part Society was concerns about the age of many of the trees there, Radar Lake, and lots of kids and so on. So they've been inspected, have they?
They have been inspected, and they have been determined as being safe. Okay. However, the age of the trees and where they are and the target area, as in target as in children or people in general, plays a significant factor into it. And so discussion has to be done, and approval needs to be done to take out essentially a healthy tree, which would be against normally our policy, but because of the high target factor there, and the age of the trees and the size of the limbs, et cetera, I think that we need to look at replacing those trees with something more appropriate for the area.
Councillor Schumann, one last.
Sorry. So I think I've read the policy, or I read something anyways. So when you're replacing them with diversified.
That's correct.
So we're not going to run into this issue again where all the trees are the same age and they're all dying at the same time from the same disease because there's the same tree.
That's correct. Yeah, we're trying to avoid single species decimation. As you know, in the past, we've had mainly spruce, pine, and poplar, with the vast majority being the northwest poplar, and so diversification is definitely where we're trying to head.
There was a big sale on way back when or something?
I don't know the history. I've heard rumors, but I can't really comment on that.
So, so thank you guys for coming in this morning. I think, to me, the message and why I felt it was important that we have a little bit of a presentation and a dialogue was we do roads and we do sidewalks, we do sewer and we do water, but and the issue of our trees has been one that I think we almost take as an aesthetic, and it's not something that's fundamental to our community. Well, it absolutely, in my view, is. And so I really am pleased to have this expertise, first of all, in our community to help us build this process for us to ensure that we understand the importance of those trees to our community and for our environment. So thanks for coming in. And if I can ask if we can just bring this forward to the fall for our budget planning for 2015. So we make sure that it's an important conversation for our community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, 6.8, we have Kim Hockstead, Manager of Technical Workforce Strategy from Spectra Energy, and is in attendance. In regards to the business and employment opportunities, good morning and welcome to. I'm going to say I recognize the last name, and so I'm going to say welcome back into the Peace River country because it's got to be a Grand Prairie name.
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
And so there was so I'm going to go back a couple of years because there was as a young man, being an avid senior hockey guy, going to the senior hockey, there was a gentleman by the name of Lyman Hockstead that was played for the Grand Prairie Athletics.
That's right. That's an uncle.
Was it? Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank
and
you.
There's a little history back into the Peace River country.
That's right. Well, I had that in my opening comments.
Trip
too.
down memory lane.
Yeah, and I think she's just getting our PowerPoint up here. Nope. That's Canna.
And in Canada?
Seize the moment.
For your yard?
I got an apple tree that's beautiful, but one big branch is dead. Do I cut it now or later?
What do you say?
Now.
So again, good morning and welcome. And
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me to be here today. I do love an opportunity to be in the Peace Country. I live in Vancouver nowadays, but I grew up on the red license plate side of the border in Grand Prairie, as I was just chatting with the mayor about. And you know, I've been 18 years in British Columbia now, so I think of myself as a British Columbian who still has strong northern roots and a tie to certainly this part of the province. Also with me is my colleague Ed Whitford. He's from our Fort St. John office. Both of us work for Spectra Energy on the West Coast Connector gas transmission project, which is our pipeline from East BC to Ridley Island and Prince Rupert. It's proposed, it's not approved. We're in the environmental assessment application process now, and our partner is BG Group, so we would build a terminal to Ridley Island. I joined Spectra about 10 months ago, and my role as technical workforce strategy means that I'm responsible for local and Aboriginal business and employment opportunities on behalf of the project. So I travel the entire proposed route, meet with communities, First Nations, and anybody really who wants to have a conversation with us about broadly the subject of jobs. So I think you had a presentation from our from two of my colleagues recently, and this just isn't working for me. Franca and Maggie, and they talked about a project overview, and if I can get it to move, then I have the map. I know there's a lot of different items that you hear about these days on the liquefied natural gas opportunity, and so just to keep clear in your mind which one we are, I should have a map.
Got to do something about the technology in this room, you know.
We'll get you going anyway.
All right.
Need to change.
Okay. So we start at Cypress, just west of let me get this right, just west of 101. We head down towards Hudson's Hope. We come reasonably close, but not right to Hudson's Hope. We take a turn just south of there, across to near Mackenzie, across the Williston Reservoir, and we stay quite far north of the Highway 16 corridor. We're up at the top of Nation Lake, top of Takla Lake, over to Cranberry Junction, north of Terrace, and then into the Nishka lands. It's 860 kilometers approximately at the west end. We have two options, of which only one will be built. They both include an offshore pipeline portion, and as I mentioned earlier, the end point is Ridley Island. Yay, now it's working. So on a procurement and business opportunity standpoint, I just wanted to put this up, which is our guiding principles for procurement. I often get questions about whether or not we have different rules for different types of companies that might come work for us or be interested in working for us or one of our contractors. The answer is no. Everybody has to meet the same level of pre-qualification criteria. We need people and companies that have the highest standards of safety, environmental and social responsibility, are committed to quality, bring financial strength and stability, are cost competitive, have excellent customer service, and can meet schedule budget. And even more importantly, too, for me, is support our inclusive business practices to include local and Aboriginal people. I think for the most part, everybody here is familiar. We're in the natural gas industry. We're striving for zero illnesses and zero work-related illnesses and injury, and we won't work with people who look at things any differently. That's not a surprise probably in this part of the province. When I'm in Northwest BC, it's a bit of a different conversation. People are not familiar with our industry, and so there's a lot of education going on out there. From the perspective of businesses who are interested in working with us, we do have a vendor registration process where people now can go on our website, and basically it's putting up their hand and saying, hey, I'm interested in working with your project. I have a supply, I have supplies or services that I think you need. And then we're starting to contact them to say, okay, now let's talk about whether or not you're qualified to work with us or our contractors. Let's help you understand the gaps between where you are now and where you might need to be. We use IS Networld to pre-qualify our vendors. I was talking to a company from Fort St. John over the last couple weeks. They were registered in ISN but hadn't been matched against the Spectra criteria. They scored an A against our criteria. They're going to be, should we need their work, easy to qualify for the work that we have. So I think you'll find that if companies here are bidding on opportunities, they should be already ready to qualify and do the work.
Kim, I'll give you an interesting bit of information as it relates to the slide in
Sure.
terms of that zero injury. I served on the board of Northern Health for about 6 years, and it was amazing to me that the long-term disability and injury rate in Northern Health was higher than the oil and gas industry in northeastern British Columbia.
Oh, yeah.
And it was evident that the industry takes safety so seriously on an ongoing and regular basis, at a much higher level than anybody else, because it's perceived to be a dangerous occupation and industry, so they put some emphasis on it. And it was always interesting to me that when you put that emphasis on it, the results are there. And so I always took that as an interesting thing, where you would think that people working in the health industry would be safe and zero injuries, and it was much more different than.
Well, even in our industry, slips, trips, and falls are one of the top reasons why people get injured. So if you translate that to health, that makes a lot of sense. And so it is in the high hazard work, people are more cautious. It's in that, we talk all the time about making sure that your driving is the most hazardous thing most of us do in a day. So making sure that you're paying absolute attention, you're not on your cell phone, you're not doing anything to endanger yourself behind the wheel. So it's interesting. So right now, as I mentioned, we're in the environmental assessment process. We filed our application in March, and we're in the middle of the public comment period. We hope to have our environmental assessment certificate November, December, so end of the year. We're right now, just for your interest, we are at a process where people can look at our environmental assessment and provide comments online to the BC Environmental Assessment Office. So if folks are interested, they can do that. And we don't often get to Dawson Creek, but we do have an open house in Fort St. John this Thursday on our environmental assessment application. So in relation to business and employment opportunities, in our routing, engineering, environmental assessment, and construction planning portion of the project, which is obviously where we are right now. It's well underway. We've had hundreds of thousands of hours of work. We'll continue doing that as we go to the next level of engineering and design work. We'll refine our watercourse crossing methods, prepare more detailed construction plans, budgets, and that will include a number of different things, including geotech survey, additional wildlife and habitat surveys. You know, not too far from here, the mountain caribou is a major wildlife migratory issue that we're looking at, always in relation to birds and other things. We use a lot of sort of those typical supply programs, courier, water, swamp mat, rental and repair, some medics and security, lots and lots of survey, some timber cruising, people and companies, and obviously a lot of biologists, engineers, accountants, and project management professionals. We also have a large number of First Nations that we've had out in the field working with our consultants. You see Terra Environmental's hard hats there. They're one of our major environmental consultants, and they've been hiring a lot of local people. The next stage before we actually get to construction would be road and bridge upgrades and getting actually ready to access that right away that I showed you. Here in this part of the province, there's lots of road access, lots of forestry and oil and gas roads and other things. As we get to other parts of the province, it's going to be a little bit more. You're dealing with single lane bridges and things that I haven't seen much of driving in this part of the province, but that we regularly run into on the western end. So the biggest business and employment opportunities exist when we actually get to the onshore construction portion of the project. And this is just a quick diagram of sort of this first 7 stages of pipeline construction. I was talking to my parents last night, because I actually was in Grand Prairie, about, you've grown up and lived in this area all your life. Is this something that comes really easily to you, or is it something that you need a little explanation? My dad could explain every stage without knowing anything about it. My mom was like, I have no clue what either of you are talking about. So I don't want to make any assumptions about what people know. Obviously, we survey, we stake, then we clear the right of way to make sure it's safe and ready for work. Then we strip the topsoil, we keep it separate, 2 different piles for the 2 different horizons of soil to make sure that the soils are replaced in an appropriate way. We use big, heavy equipment to dig the trench. Heavy equipment operation is going to be a massive, massive piece of this. People with Class 1 driver's licenses, people with heavy equipment operator certificates, no matter where they're from in the province, are going to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. If there's folks in this area looking for that work when we get there, there's absolutely going to be ability for them. Patting the trench bottom, more sand and gravel, similar to what we would utilize in building the roads and bridges. So certainly we're doing some research now on what kind of burrow materials exist, sand, gravel, rock, other things that we might need. And it's a great employment or business opportunity for a number of people, and First Nations in particular are very interested in getting into the gravel business or expanding their gravel business. What else do we also, the trucking and logistics is just a massive part of this operation. Our pipe will be 4 feet in diameter and probably 40 feet, is that what we've decided, long?
40 to 60.
40 to 60 feet on the truck. We'll put 1 to 3 pipe sections on a truck, where this morning as I was driving down the highway, I saw the, pipe that big and there's 20 stacks on there. So it's a very different trucking and logistics operation than a lot of the work that you'll see in this region. And that probably brings me to my next point, which is as we continue to move through the process and we get to things like welding, welding for us is a little bit different than the typical welding that you see here in the Peace Country. My brother's a journeyman welder. He welded for a long time in Northeast BC and Northwest Alberta. And when I talk to him about how welding will happen on our project, it's completely unfamiliar to him. He's never used welding shacks. He's never used automatic welders. That's going to be the norm for us. So I did hear someone from the college talking about their welding programs. We'll make sure that we have a conversation with them about that transition. And we're also talking to some of the unions about how you train someone who's been working here on the kind of pipe welding that is done on a typical regular basis, and what kind of additional training or assistance that they need in order to be ready to do this work. So it is a little bit different. From a welding perspective, I think that there probably are a number of long-term welding careers and opportunities for folks here in this part of the province. In Northwest BC, it's something that I actually discourage people from thinking about, because it's not, from a large format pipeline construction perspective, something that appeals to a lot of people that live in northern British Columbia. Most people live here because they want to, for family or other reasons. If people wanted to leave, they may have taken that opportunity, like someone like me did back in '96. So the next job will be somewhere else in the world, or somewhere else in Canada, somewhere in southern Alberta or near the oil sands. People may want to look instead at, careers related to the Class 1 driver's license, the heavy equipment operators, I speak to this a little bit later, but in the compressor stations where we need electricians and instrumentation technicians. That's the kind of work that's going to have long-term career opportunities, and we're very focused on trying to encourage people to look from a business and an employment perspective at participating in the liquefied natural gas industry that everyone's excited about, but making sure that when the construction of these pipelines in particular in this area is complete, that their businesses and jobs don't disappear, that they still have the ability to work. So as we continue through, we complete the welds, start lowering them into the ditch that can be padded. Side booms is another area where, you probably see them pretty regularly up here, but again, a 48-inch pipe welded. The side boom cranes that exist in this area generally can't do the work. I heard, and I'm almost scared to say it on the record, but from one of our vice presidents, 70% of the side boom cranes that exist in North America now would be required to complete the construction on a project such as just ours. And there's a number of them proposed. So it is a little bit different. Certainly people who are experienced in side boom operation can do the work. When we get to the mountainous territory and in and around the Pine Pass and on the northwest side, it's very likely that we'll be looking to experts who have done that kind of work in those kinds of areas previously. And that's really a safety thing more than anything else. We need people that know how to run a counterweighted, balanced machine on the side of a mountain, and that's not everybody. But certainly folks that are experienced in it up here can look towards those opportunities. It might be a great opportunity for them to increase their skill level. We continue to test the pipe before we put it in the ground and cover it. We want to make sure that those welds are completely perfect. So it's inspected after it's welded and before it's coated, when it's lowered in. And then the last thing we do before we cover it up is to do a hydrostatic inspection. And this is something that I actually find really interesting. We fill it with water until it exceeds the operating pressure of the pipe. So whatever pressure we're going to put on that gas at our compressor stations, we exceed it with the water in the pipe. We test it all the way through and make sure that it'll work. Then we cover it over, more grading, and start to restore the right-of-way, which includes the call before you dig signs, the reintroduction of vegetation. We've applied for a 55-meter right-of-way. We may narrow that. We've applied for up to 2 pipelines, so depending on whether or not we have the first pipeline contracted with BG. We don't have a partner on the second pipeline, but we do have it in our environmental assessment application. So we may do a partial remediation to potentially do a second construction after that. But obviously we hydroseed it to let vegetation regrow, and I'm sure you're familiar with pipeline right-of-ways, that we don't put the trees back on it in case we need to access the pipe. So offshore, probably not something that's top of mind here, but it is a little bit different, so I wanted to make sure that I talked about it. The picture there is of a pipe lay vessel. It lays the pipe in an S formation onto the seabed. It actually is to look online and to see some of the photos of the pipe coming off those ships, you really realize how much natural flex is in that pipe. And when people talk about seismic issues and other things, it really helps demonstrate how much you really, when it's in the ground, it can respond to the natural movement of the earth. This will be a largely staffed vessel. There are only 2 in the world that can do the 42-inch offshore pipe lay that we're looking at. So they will bring a highly specialized crew to do that work, but there will be a number of local and Aboriginal business and employment opportunities that are listed. Some of them are listed there. Camps, obviously camps is something folks here are familiar with, and I know that the Dawson Creek Chamber of Commerce recently had their resolution on industrial camps located in or near communities passed at the BC Chamber AGM. Expressed concern about how operators plan and work on camps in relation to their communities. We don't have one near Dawson for this project. We have one near the Halfway River probably, and these are very draft location sites. One near Hudson Hope, but not right in the community. The closest we'll come to a community is in Mackenzie. We've started the consultation process with the community and the District of Mackenzie already. We think it's important to make sure that we're good corporate citizens on that. So, if we were coming near here with something else Spectre was doing, I would expect a similar approach from us. Obviously, camps provide a large variety of jobs and a great opportunity for people to move in and move up, certainly from a cook perspective to get their apprenticeship, and many supervisory positions. I know that talking to camp providers, they're all very proud of the success that they've had of helping people start at room attendants or janitorial staff and continue to move into supervisory positions and then be employed in the hospitality industry in our local communities, working in hotels and restaurants. Support to the camps, typical stuff. Deal with the garbage, get them the water, security, maintaining the site. Compressor stations, again, probably something that's reasonably familiar. In this area, we will have up to 5 on our site. They're the only permanent buildings, so we do in this case use the carpenters, electricians, mechanics, some of the things that you might not see in some of the others. Well, we'll use mechanics in other parts too. And lots of site survey, earthworks, and, then long-term operators. So this is the typical type of stuff that Spectre does now. We'll need about 5,800 people when we're in the peak of our construction. Our long-term opportunities will be about 60 full-time people and a number of contractors. So, the business opportunities listed there are the things we contract. The employment opportunities are the people we actually have maintaining our site, running the operations. Obviously, gas control is very important to us. Right now, we do have a gas control room at Charlie Lake and one in Calgary. We'll determine exactly what we require in relation to this should it proceed. And, this is where we have instrumentation techs, electricians, and other people working full-time. This is just a quick summary of some of the areas that we see for a high degree of local inclusion. I've mentioned some others. Like I said, it's really about transferable skills, transferable business opportunities, and to look to some of those things that are very rare and will only happen in relation to these projects. Look to the experts at that. First, we'll recruit people from, the north piece, but certainly the south piece as well, along the pipeline corridor, along the Highway 16 corridor as a very first area to look. Then we'll look to the rest of British Columbia, the rest of Canada, before we would ever bring in foreign workers, although we do expect we'll probably require some. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Wow. Councillor Parsons?
First Nations, do you have any targets for employment for First Nations, like 10%, 15%?
We haven't set any yet. We are still in early conversations with all of the First Nations along the route. We haven't really decided exactly what our approach to that will be. There's 2 schools of thought on that. The one that seems to be dominating for us right now is when you set a target, it becomes your minimum and your maximum. And when we talk to companies who have done a lot of work recently, they're nervous about that minimum problem. Is that, it's not about us, it's not Spectre we're worried about on that, it's our subcontractors. And we need to manage them to ensure that they do everything they can to include local and First Nations. We don't want to give them minimums. So we're trying to figure out how we'll do it. We'll certainly track it. We'll certainly be holding our contractors accountable. We are now. But as we get into, 5,800 people rather than where we're at now, that would be a very important piece of it. And we will negotiate agreements with each of the First Nations that will include some business and employment opportunities as part of that, or at least a process for that. So, we're working on it, but don't have a target.
Two quick questions, if I may. So did I hear you correctly, as a result of all this, in the northeast region there will be 60 FTE jobs after the construction?
It wouldn't be in the northeast, that would be across the entire
across
pipeline
the entire
route.
north.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do have lots of employees in BC now, almost 900.
Oh, yes,
so
certainly. Yeah. It just
Yeah.
says 60 additional.
Yeah.
And this project is obviously linked to the fact that when you won't go ahead until there's some LNG contracts.
Right. So right now we have a partner in BG that will do the export. We don't have an upstream partner, so that would be should the upstream become worked out, and there's a lot of work going on that now. Having permits in hand is a big deal before you start signing some of those partnerships. Then there'd be even more opportunities in this area, and certainly the upstream partner would be a big part of the conversation in this area. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? So obviously, from my perspective, the exposure now to what's going on in the upstream for the Northeast, the midstream stuff and processing and pipelining, and then finally the downstream and the LNG plants and the potential for that, all has for us the impacts. And I think the one to me that I always try to emphasize to people, because the LNG projects get so much attention, but the amount of activity that's going to be required in the upstream in our region to develop and process in the long term for 30, 40, 50 years is significant. And so as Councillor Parslow indicates, the upstream or the downstream, in terms of when the facilities are announced, then the activity for everybody increases, and Spectra involved. Also, we do have the effects of Spectra Energy in our community.
Absolutely.
With the processing facilities that are located at Besborough and north of our community in Rolla, all bring permanent long-term positions to our community of power engineers and the electrical control room fellows. So they're a huge piece of our community, and that's what builds our community in the long term.
Yeah, and certainly it was no surprise to me to hear the gentleman from Northern Opportunities, I think he was with NLC, a wait list for power engineering, no surprise to us. Certainly we have lots of retirements coming in our company. It's a great, from operations side of our business, a great thing for people to be getting certified in order to find long-term, well-paid jobs with our company and others.
Well, one of the innovations that I saw as I toured the Spectra facility was the OPTEC process that they go, where they have a power engineer, and then they say you need to have a secondary skill as well so they're being electricians or mechanics or plumbers or whatever. And I think it's a great innovative step that they've taken in terms of trying to build that broad base of their employee skill that they bring to the jobs. Anyway, thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to be here.
And thank you for coming along, and it was good to see you. Thanks very much.
So Terry, there's a need for retired RCMP people. Still.
They might have to be able to run though, or something.
Just
Your deal.
stand at the gate, lift the gate.
80,000 a year.
Yeah.
There you go.
Do you want a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I
All
know.
right.
I do.
Okay.
We're going to be back onto our agenda. Item 8, bylaws. 8.1, we have a temporary borrowing bylaw, number 4200.
Motion.
Councillor Wilbur, you moving? Second.
Sure, I'm moving.
Councillor Schumann, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8.2,
Reverse.
Councillor Schumann moves. Can we read it? Because just for the benefit of the
Oh.
media.
So bylaw number 4219, 2014, 9601 19th Street, Geist, for consideration of third reading and adoption.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.3.
Parslow and
Come on,
McFadden.
Terry.
Come on, guys.
Zoning amendment 14, bylaw number 42222, 214, 1529, 102nd Avenue, Simmons, for consideration of third reading and adoption.
Seconded, Councillor Parslow. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll go back to 8.3.
Oh.
Didn't we didn't do that one yet, did we?
Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah.
All right. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Moved by Councillor Schumann.
So this is the
Gary Loisel.
bylaw number 4220, 2014,
That's right.
505, 601, 116th, Gary Loisel, consideration of third reading and adoption.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McFadden. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.5 I've got to leave for. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. One more, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm going to take the chair.
Which one? 14,
This matter is the OCP Amendment 1402 bylaw number 4217 and zoning amendment 1406 bylaw. This is the one where we had presentation from Blaine and Joe. So, resolution for this?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that report number 14-097 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding the OCP Amendment 14-02 bylaw number 4217, 2014, and zoning amendment 14-06 bylaw number 4218, 2014 be received. Further, that the OCP Amendment 14-02 bylaw 4217, 2014, and zoning amendment 14-06 bylaw number 4218, 2014, redesignating 10.8 hectares of the remainder of east half of the northeast quarter of section 22, township 78, range 15, west of the 6th meridian, PRD, from apartment residential to single family country residential, and rezoning the same from A1 agriculture zone to RS1 residential single family zone be refused based on the non-compliance with the Harvest View Sunset Ridge neighborhood plan.
Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Any discussion? Yes.
Well, I think we have a plan in place, that it was there, that there is ability for future busing, that kind of stuff, and it was all looked at in that plan. And given that we're going forward with our committee and looking at all these different issues, I think I'm in full support of this recommendation.
Councillor McFadden?
Thank you, Your Worship. Would this committee we've just struck revisit this or visit this again? Kevin?
The Residential Development Committee? That,
yeah. Kevin might have an answer.
Council, yes. Kevin?
So through you, Your Worship, the committee will be looking at certain aspects of what's within this plan, but and I think the delegation alluded to it, is that there was a number of players at the table when this plan was developed, and it was fairly extensive, took a fair amount of time, and if there was a desire to change the plan moving forward, I think we need to make sure we bring those same people back to the table, that same consultation level, and go through that process. And it would be a process that would require significant consultation, to be fair to the plan, because of how much went in developing the plan.
Councillor Wilbur?
Through you, Chair, to Kevin, I believe also this whole development was a part of the master transportation plan, so some of the issues around busing and routing and all of that were taken into consideration in our master transportation plan.
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. So this plan has actually been great for that aspect, as we've been using it to help develop the master transportation plan, the sanitary sewer master plan, because we have an area that actually is planned out, and we have a sense of the densities that are there moving forward. The other areas of town, we don't. It is that ad hoc approach of whatever the market is driving at that particular moment.
Yeah, from my perspective, the committee, let's say Residential Development Committee, from my understanding, that's not going to be sort of coming forward with notions of rezoning.
No.
I was impressed by the presentation. I'm going to support the recommendation, but I thought there was a lot of considerations there, and based upon, it's always good to have hindsight, but there's an awful lot of work, and you can't piecemeal an OCP, and that's why I'm supporting this. But I do think we need to flag this issue for when we look at long-range planning and our major, well, for the future council's major planning sessions at the beginning of its term, because there may be some things we need to consider here, but certainly all people need to be, as Blaine Nicholson stated, all people need to be brought back to it. This is an immense piece of work, and we are already, my perspective, we already have our major work pieces for the term of this council already decided upon. So that's why I'm supporting this, but I do think we should flag it as something for consideration for the next council. Councillor McFadden, anything to you? Councillor
Well,
Woodburn?
just for clarification, when I speak to the subcommittee, I'm just thinking that this is a wonderful example of work that has been done that can be looked at when we're looking at other areas of the community. So I just wanted to clarify what I meant by that.
Yeah, okay. Any further comments? All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'll go and get the mayor.
So we're through bylaws. And next up for me is mayor's business. And the first item I wanted to highlight was I received a letter from the LGMA in regards to and it's a really a terrific letter, speaking to the efforts of our Deputy Director of Corporate Administration, Tyra Henderson, and talked about the significant contributions that Tyra's made in the recent changes to the local government elections legislation, putting in huge amount of effort and a commitment towards this on behalf of the association. And so I got a letter from Nancy Taylor, the Executive Director, thanking Tyra and us for the support that Tyra's given, not only support but the expertise in helping guide those changes. And so I thought it was really appropriate that we say thank you to Tyra, obviously on behalf of the community.
Give her an attaboy.
Can you stand up, Tyra?
Stand up, Tyra.
Take a bow.
Yay.
I want to leave my, I'm going to do, so obviously I was at the natural gas conference last week and was asked to sit on a panel with the Mayor of Fort St. John, Mayor Ackerman, and the Mayor of Northern Rockies, Mayor Streeper, talking about the impacts of the industry on our communities and or in general on communities. And so they first of all asked us to all give a presentation to on behalf of our communities, giving a bit of an overview. And you know, we had the International Trade and Investment Group here probably a month and a half ago doing a tour of the Northeast and gave presentations to the group on behalf of all the communities and the economic development communities, the representatives of economic development from all the communities were there giving a presentation, and Sue gave a presentation on behalf of our community. And so I met with Trina Gower Studios and asked them if they could help us and help me in developing a PowerPoint presentation to be used at events, at conferences, when I'm asked to present on behalf of our community, to be able to deliver the message about our community and what it is. And so I thought I got that presentation. Taryn helped me from Trina Gower Studios, obviously helped me. She was the one that did it all. And so it was, I really, really was very appreciative of the work that they went into doing it for us. And I thought it was appropriate that maybe I do it today at under Mayor's Business to give council an opportunity to see the message about the quality of life in that overarching message on behalf of the community, not only for council but also for the public to see that. And I'm going to do that presentation today. It's about a 6-minute. It's actually 6 minutes and 48 seconds is what it takes, but it's about that. And I want to do that, but I just wanted to talk briefly about the Natural Gas Conference. It's the second conference now in about the last 3 weeks that I've attended, both as a delegate to the LNG conference 3 weeks ago and then the Natural Gas Conference this past week. The amount of attention that the upstream component of the natural gas industry is receiving, and that we are the upstream internationally, and then nationally, regionally, and locally, is really unbelievable in terms of the amount that's going on in regards to what I believe is potentially transformational to our community and our region. And last week, the TransCanada, we had Spectre here talking about their proposed 850-kilometer line. TransCanada last week announced a $1.9 billion line from the northeast into Summit Lake, where they'll connect with the Trans Mountain Line, I believe it is. It's a joint effort to feed Apache Chevron's proposal that they've got going. Obviously Shell with Mitsubishi and a number of other components are in there. Petronas, along with Progress Energy, it's the amount of activity that's going on in the north of Fort St. John in the 101 Pink Mountain area with 28 or 30 wells being proposed. It really is unbelievable the amount of activity that's ongoing and the amount of work and investment that's taking place, potentially leading to the final investment decisions. You'll hear that term a lot, the FIDs, and it is about the final investment decision that industries or any of the companies make with respect to their final investment decision around building an LNG facility or not on the West Coast. And so I think there's 3 or 4 of them that are potentially the big ones, and it is the Shell one, it is the Petronas one, and it is this Chevron Apache one that's a joint venture. And that, I believe, the final investment decisions come in the fall when the provincial government announced the tax royalty structure or system that they're going to impose on how they receive the royalty for this resource to build that eventually the prosperity fund that's going to impact what we hope is the benefit to our province and the long-term benefit. But when they start talking about 6 to 8 billion cubic feet of gas per day that potentially is going to be produced, currently there's about 3.5 billion cubic feet of gas ready for production. So if somebody turned on a plant today, there's about 3.5 billion cubic feet of gas per day ready. They need, with 3 plants, they need about 8 to 10 billion cubic feet just for the plants. That's not the domestic market and all the rest of it they feed. And so when you think about that and you hear that context of what it means, it is unbelievable what the activity and the upstream development. And Kim Hochstad from Spectre talked a little bit about it today, but one of the things that we will see, I think, and we're already seeing, is the development of processing facilities in our region. Because once they get it out of the ground, they got to get it to a processing facility like Spectre, like Murphy, like Apache, or like Encana will have, like all of these companies have, to process the gas to get the liquids out of it to ship it. Those are the long-term jobs that we absolutely are seeing today and will continue to see. So it's pretty amazing to me, and this natural gas conference was one more component to that. And before I do the presentation, the announcement we had last week in regards to the municipal coalition that we've formed with the other municipalities in northeastern British Columbia. 7 out of the 8 municipalities have signed into this, a coalition for us as a region to plan for the development of the infrastructure needs on resource development in our region. And so it's Resource Development Coalition is what it is, and it's about the impacts to natural gas. So as we plan with the province and industry, what are the impacts to our region for highways, for power, for the electrification, all of those components that are going to go on, we all need to be at the table to it. And then all of us are going to be impacted indirectly and or directly by policing, by health, by those services that are going to impact us. We need to have that planning process underway. And so the municipal coalition that we formed and have moved forward with is exactly that. It's really gaining the momentum now in terms of all of the municipalities have signed into it. I'm sorry, 7 out of the 8 have signed into it. And we're working with the provincial government and industry in order to put that planning lens onto the planning of our region and the impacts to our region. And so with that, I'd like to, if I can, I want to do this presentation. It's about 6 minutes, so if you can indulge me, I think it's loaded. And
Mr. Mayor?
I thought it would be appropriate, as I say, to deliver.
Did you want to deal with 6.3 and 6.6 before you do your presentation? Or
Oh,
after?
sure. 6.3 was our...
Can I just ask a couple of questions about what you've presented
Sure.
so far? This municipal coalition, any cost implications to the city?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's we've got a consultant hired
Are
on.
you talking that he's working for that group?
Yes.
Can you say which community
Colin.
isn't?
Oh, Hudson Hope hasn't signed on to it yet. Colin Griffith from CJG Consultants has been hired by the coalition to do the lead the work that's going to be necessary for the coalition. I don't have the budget. We're having a planning session in the next coming weeks for that, and so we'll bring that back forward through council.
So he was hired initially by Fort St. John, and then that's to do with the fair share negotiation.
So the fair share negotiations are a component to this as well.
I see. I think we should discuss that sometime.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the regional district's not part of that.
No, because the regional district don't have the services component attached to those components that we're going to be exposed to as a community for water, sewer, policing, health, the infrastructure services.
No, I was thinking about highways.
Highways are more of a provincial jurisdiction,
Yeah,
so they don't flow within the regional district in terms of their accountability for providing that upgrades or services.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So item 6.3, we had a delegation, Tom Moran and Ann Clayton, in regards to the request to remove the exclusion of the land from the agricultural land reserve. Councillor Parslow.
I would like to make a motion in support of that.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McFadden. Discussion. Councillor Schumann.
I'm curious to know how this fits into our comprehensive development plan, if this was identified land, if, you know, how that all fits together. I mean, we had the Shipton thing that we didn't allow, and now there's this thing, and how does this all fit together and relate to one another?
Sure. Through your worship, I'll talk a little bit about that, and then Brenda can maybe allude to the process of, because today they were just in front of you seeking support. There is actually an application process and a referral process through that. So, so initially, the parcel in question is not part of the South Peace Comprehensive Development Plan. It was one of the properties that was suggested at the time, but for a number of reasons was not included as one of the identified properties. So if we back up now to where the previous request from the Shiptons came in, very, very similar situation. And I know council had a lot of deliberation around that. So I think, again, need to be careful about being consistent. And if we were to support this particular application, I would think that you would have the Shiptons in here rather quickly seeking some support. And we did talk last time about the consistency with the plan and what the possible ramifications would be if we went outside that plan. Layered on top of that is, as we heard, that the ALR, ALC are making changes. We don't know what that's going to look like. It may certainly benefit this applicant down the road. So council may wish to wait to see if that plays out as well. So there's a number of things there.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Actually, this brings up, so I know with the Shipton's property, it was within our city limits. Is this property within our city limits?
Yes, this property is within the city limits. It's very much the same situation.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I had my notes about this Shipton. So I thank Councillor Schumann for raising that again. And I had thought about it. I was going to ask the question, but again, I need to lean on Kevin here. I thought the Shipton's property was within the plan, and this was excluded. Was the Shipton property covered by the OCP?
So,
Comprehensive Development Plan.
right, these two properties are exactly the same within the Comprehensive Development Plan I's, is that they were properties that were suggested in the process, but were not identified and approved within the process. So there were people that wanted to be included, but were not.
And what was the reasons why we didn't get involved with the Shipton application? You would know.
I wasn't here at that one, so I'll.
What were the reasons?
So again, going back, that the reason council deliberated for as long as they did on the Shipton is the uncertainty around the risk of supporting an application that is outside of the comprehensive development plan without consultation to the people that were part of that plan, and what may come of that, and the possibility that the ALR might, halt everything, reopen the plan, want to redo everything, and it could fundamentally affect some of the other properties that are identified to come out. So I think council at that time looked at the risk and stepped away from it.
Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I was listening to this presentation, and it sounded like they were saying that now there's a need for bigger properties and bigger pieces. But I remember from the last one, it was, we've got lots of big pieces, we need the little pieces. So, I'm kind of confused about what what the actual need is, right? But I'm all in favor of sticking to our comprehensive development plan, seeing what comes of this Bill 24 business, and so I'm not going to support Councillor Parslow's.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
I think, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the issue as with Shipton's and is now, as was stated, was that we have room for commercial, but we don't have those bigger lots for industrial. So it's the zoning of the land. So I think it was the same.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, this is a bit problematic in the sense of consistency. I don't know how I felt about the Shipton deliberations. I think I was a bit uncomfortable with council's decision at that time, as I recall. But the words that really resonated with me is, I don't want this community to lose the opportunity of high-paying industrial development to another community because we don't have a land bank suitable for the needs of this type of industry. So I guess I'm going to stick with my support of this because, and if the Shiptons wish to revisit, fine, because I don't want us to lose the high salaried opportunities. We talk about economic development. Well, most of the economic development we engage in is engaged in low wage stuff like tourism. And I think we need to really have that land bank for industry. So I'm going to stay with my support for this.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Can Kevin just speak to the lands that are available for this type of development? Are we short on this land?
Through your worship, just for clarity, there is some property available that was identified for light industrial. There's 2 quarter sections at the intersection of Water Treatment Plant Road and the DGR, owned by 2 separate individuals. One was mentioned here today. So those properties were in the plan, in the South Peace Comprehensive Development Plan. They're identified. They've gone as far as starting, I believe the one property has gone through the rezoning process with the PRD because it is outside the limits. The other one is going through the process as we speak. We're working with the owner to, council's already given first 2 readings for rezoning inside the city limits, which is a quarter section identified for light industrial. There were some other properties that were identified out by GreenSmart and whatnot. So there are some properties available, but it's not the property of the owner that we're talking about.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And so once these properties are developed and they're filled up, then we sort of move on to these others, right? Is that how sort of
That was the idea of the plan, is that as we went through and development occurred, then that comprehensive development plan would be revisited and further properties may be identified to be included into that ALR exclusion in the queue, so to speak. Again, it should be noted, even if we support this, if council supports this property, they're behind those other 2 properties I mentioned as far as the queue and the development, so to speak, because they're going to have to go through the rezoning process once the ALR is done with it. ALR could be a year to 18 months, especially with the uncertainty and the changes that they're looking at. They may just shelve it and wait. I don't know. That could play a part in it. So again, it won't get this property online before the others, I don't believe.
Thanks, Kevin. Any further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item 6.6. We have a request from the delegation Kathleen Connolly and Jeremy Earl were in attendance regarding our downtown parking bylaw. Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, I appreciated the presentation. I know there's a fair amount of history, behind requests for removal of meters and so on and so forth. But I particularly like the second recommendation, whereby there be some dialogue around the issues. I think perhaps I'd like to support that second component. I can't support the first, which I see as a temporary parking lot. I don't think that's something I would like to see in the unless it was paved and all that stuff. So I would like to move that there be a meeting to discuss some win-win resolution to this matter between the targeted group and the city.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Parslow that we engage in arrange a meeting with the downtown merchants, with the chamber to look at the downtown parking bylaw. Is that, am I hearing that right?
To come up with see if we can come up to, I mean, we've had the presentations, and I think the second component was a dialogue, and I think it's good to have dialogue always and see if we can come up with some win-win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seconded, Councillor McFadden. Did you second that?
Absolutely.
Discussion. Councillor Wilbur.
Through you, Chair to Cabinet, just refresh my memory. On our master transportation plan, downtown parking was something that was looked at. Do you recall what that outcome was?
Parking availability was looked at, and if I don't have it in front of me, but I remember it was wasn't deemed to be much of an issue at all, that there was significant parking available.
Yeah, so.
Councillor Wilbur.
I have concerns. You may not always get your ideal parking spot where you work downtown or where you want to be, but I mean, a lot of people don't seem to have any problem walking to get to the bank or where they have to go. And the only other thing that I guess popped into my mind is most of our tourists park at the NAR park with their RVs. I don't see them driving and parking downtown, so that causes me a little bit of question there. But I mean, I'm open to discussing it with downtown, but my understanding is from that master transportation plan and taking part in that downtown walking study that there was ample parking. You just didn't always get your most favorite parking spot downtown.
Thank you. Kevin?
Just would like to provide a little bit of clarity too, that there was some mention of a parking blitz. I want to be clear that we don't actually have a parking blitz. That the letter that we sent out in the spring was a reminder because we were starting to get a number of calls. Bylaw responds to complaints, and we actually don't patrol unless we get a complaint. So I think our parking blitz brought in about $800 of revenue, which is not nearly enough to cover the costs. But we respond to complaints, and I'd say 90% or more of the complaints come from downtown businesses because they have somebody parked in front of their store business for longer than the 2 hours per se. So if we look at the consultation piece, I just wanted to make sure council's aware that, and I don't know the extent of the consultation, but staff resourcing might be a problem if we get into this, especially with some of the other pieces we're doing, like the development committee and things like that. So don't know about timing. Staff resources are going to be an issue. And if they don't want, if businesses, downtown businesses don't want any parking enforcement, staff's happy to oblige. We have lots that we can do. We don't need to do that enforcement piece. So leave it at that.
Thank you. Shelley?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Kevin said, is that there's a mixed messaging here, because there are some people that are coming forward that want enforcement and some businesses that don't want enforcement, and we have a problem, but no, we don't have a problem. So it might be in council's best interest to actually have a meeting with the chamber, but to have a full bylaw amendment is a really big piece of work that I don't think we have the capacity to do right now. So.
And I don't think that was the motion. We just the motion
I mean,
was
I
we'll
appreciate
engage.
very much what you're saying and what Kevin's saying, but I think there's no harm in just having a chat about it. If I can just add, if I may, one other reality about the Blitz thing. Again, I stand to be corrected. But if there's a 2-hour parking limit. If somebody, if bylaws, there's a complaint, for bylaw to respond, they have to mark the tires. And then it has to be another 2 hours before they can do it. So essentially, it's a 4-hour deal, right? I mean, so I think we're just having some dialogue with some good people, but certainly not I'm not asking that we amend the bylaw. I just think it's good always, if there's a problem, let's understand the problem and stuff without there being a formal big chunk of work being done.
Thank you.
And if it does require it, then we plan for it in the long term.
Councillor McFadden?
Well, as the representative of council to the chamber, with your permission, your worship, I'll arrange a meeting with the chamber, and we'll put together a questionnaire or some way we can contact the downtown business folks without putting a lot of strain and stress on the already busy staff. I'm sure we can take care of that.
Thank you. So we have the motion that we're going to move forward with the engagement with the chamber and our downtown businesses to understand and follow through on the delegation presentation by Jeremy and Kathleen. And so that's the purpose of the motion as it stands now, and we'll move forward on that basis. Thank you, Councillor McFadden, for moving forward with it. I remember the days in 93 to 99 when we had parking meters and the pain of that whole process of enforcement and all that stuff. It's never easy in terms of how you manage that downtown parking, and we appreciate that. So let's engage in that with them. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So if I can, I'd like to move forward with my PowerPoint presentation. It's loaded and let's go.
Nice pictures.
And any of us can use this. If we
Yeah,
need it,
absolutely.
right?
That's why I just thought it would be worthwhile for you guys to see it, and hopefully.
They're not copyrighted.
So we're all getting it on a
No, we can all have access to that PowerPoint.
Okay. I can't use it as some artistic
No.
inspiration.
No, I was thinking
Don't
if you
pay.
got invited somewhere and they wanted to know about your community, you could show them this PowerPoint.
You just can't say you're Dale Bumstead, that's all.
Well, I can say it. They might not
say we're
believe
acting
it.
light.
You can't even say you're acting like.
All you gotta do is say, "Let me give you a hug," and then
Yeah. They'll be like, "Oh,
Then you know
Dale,
them.
Oh.
it's you, Dale."
Lovely to see you again.
Is it on here somewhere?
I don't think so. I don't.
Isn't it?
It's in the minutes.
It's in the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I scrolled to the top. That's not where I'm supposed to be.
Did you?
There I am.
What do we
And everything's loading nice and fast.
So are we getting a stick with the money?
Yeah, we want a stick.
We want a
You
stick.
can get one.
I want a stick.
We'll get you
want a
one.
stick.
We'll have to get some.
Is that what this is in here?
These are quite nice.
Probably end up with.
No, that's from the college. Do we have some mild
Is it the
zero flow
PowerPoint?
sticks?
I want that. I want
What's
the,
this?
This is the presentation from the college and
Oh.
Shell.
Which
They're saving paper but can't force this one. Support.
Did you
It's
grab
not
that
ready
stick?
yet.
Oh, I said that.
I did.
Because I left it over
I know,
there.
I know.
Oh, it comes with video and everything?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Bumstead, and I truly love the place I call home. So much so that I ran for mayor, and they elected me in 2013. Today, Dawson Creek is a thriving city of 13,000 people in northeastern British Columbia. Every story has a beginning, and ours begins with George Mercer Dawson, a remarkable man who surveyed Western Canada despite a physical disability. Dawson Creek is named after him and started out as a farming community in the middle of the last great land rush in North America at the turn of the 20th century. The Northern Alberta Railway arrived in 1931 and carried grain from our region to every corner of the continent. But 11 years later, in 1942, our population exploded when construction began on the Alaska Highway. The Americans needed an overland route to Alaska after the Pearl Harbor bombings, and in the late winter, 10,000 men and a lot of tents arrived on that train. At that time, Dawson Creek only had approximately 600 residents. As a starting point of construction, we were named Mile Zero of the 2,400-kilometer highway. Later, in 1958, Dawson Creek was reincorporated as a city and also became known as the capital of the peace. Of course, this was all before my time, and now, more than 55 years later, our economy and community are diverse and supported by 4 anchor industries: agriculture, transportation, forestry, and energy. Last year was a huge year for our grain farmers, one of the best in a long time. 90% of BC's grain and 95% of the canola are produced in the Peace River region. Dawson Creek is the sales and service center for producers of quality grass seeds and crop like wheat, barley, canola, and peas. Ranching remains a strong economic center. Canada's largest bison herd is located in the Peace River region, and some of the best beef on the continent is raised here. As the point of entry to northern British Columbia, Dawson Creek's transportation sector is also an essential component of our economy. Infrastructure includes not only the Alaska Highway, but the junction of 3 other major highways, which allows access to BC's interior, Alberta, and even the far north. In the forestry sector, the Louisiana Pacific OSB plant in Dawson Creek employs more than 100 people and reopened last winter after the devastating downturn in the economy and the U.S. housing market. Many private contractors serve the industry as truck drivers, loggers, and silviculturalists, which employs roughly 1,700 people in our region. Although these sectors are strong, sustainable drivers of our economy, we're feeling the effects of the development of the natural gas industry in our community. It turns out we're sitting on top of a huge shale gas formation called the Montney Gas Field, one of the largest gas resources in the world. Encana Corporation, Arc Resources, CNRL, Shell, Murphy Oil all have facilities near Dawson Creek. And as we expect to see the construction of the LNG or liquefied natural gas plants to feed the international market, the potential investment in our community and region over the next 50 years is expected to be upwards of $150 billion. The economic opportunities for business are like nothing we've seen before, and employment opportunities like truck driving, welding, pipe fitting, electrical, etc. are all going to be significant. We're transforming into an energy community, a fitting name as we're also home to BC's Energy College, Northern Lights College. Northern Lights College works in collaboration with the 7 communities it serves, as well as employers and industry to graduate skilled workers. These young people will be able to stay in the region in secure, good-paying jobs, making better lives for themselves and their families. Both degree and trade certification programs are offered at the college, and the recent federal budget announced zero-interest loans for the skilled trades training programs. More importantly, though, we are a young, vibrant, family-friendly community. The average income per household after taxes is $76,000, and our median age is just 35 years old. I'm very proud to tell you that in 2013, we did not have a single unsolved major crime in our community. Our citizens enjoy a truly great quality of life. We enjoy wide open spaces and easy access to spectacular nature, winter and summer. Our city has all the amenities required to live a healthy, secure lifestyle, including a hospital and schools that are run by one of the most innovative districts in the province of British Columbia. Something you won't find everywhere is an arts community as vibrant and active as ours. Our art gallery is unique in the world, a wooden grain elevator of the kind that used to be everywhere across Western North America. It's the icon of our city logo, along with the sun that shines on us for so many days of the year. Sports is also huge in our area, and Dawson Creek has pretty much everything you could want in that regard, including 4 ice rinks, brand new soccer and baseball fields, a skateboard park that was designed and built by our youth, which is a fantastic accomplishment. On top of that, we have not just a swimming pool, but a beautiful new aquatic center with a climbing wall, walking track, and indoor riding stables, which are all attached to our Encana Event Center. The Encana Event Center is an amazing state-of-the-art multi-event facility, big enough to showcase world-class entertainment. People come from all across northern British Columbia and Alberta to see the shows, entertainment, and events in our facility. A few years ago, we asked our citizens to identify the long-term priorities for City Hall and Council. Sustainability came out on top, and we have pursued that outcome ever since. A local group took the initiative to develop BC's first wind park, for instance. We have a program to finish installing the solar thermal hot water systems on all our city-owned facilities and solar-powered lighting throughout our town. We have received many awards for these efforts and are recognized as one of BC's most innovative green cities. All of this brings me here today to tell you about my home, to share something of where we're heading, how we're leading the way in fact, and to tell you the future looks very promising indeed. Thank you.
So if we use that, we have to take that first part out about
Well, your
why
own
I got
introduction,
elected as
right?
mayor.
Yeah, your own introduction. But to me, it was something that we absolutely.
It's awesome.
So this is all part of it still, right?
Oh, this was the start.
The intro.
Oh, this was just the intro.
Going again. It's great. Wonderful. Great
bad.
tool.
Not bad.
Great tool for your toolbox there. Mr.
Another
Mayor.
bit of the arsenal of how we promote our community. And so, as I say, I delivered that presentation last week at the natural gas conference, and I just think it's a great bit of information that we have to be able to go out when we're speaking. And as I say, Taryn and Trina Gower Studios put it all together, and we lined up the script in order to make sure that it flowed with the presentation, so you're not there working the slides and things. And so I encourage anybody, if you've got an opportunity to speak, you can got the speaking notes and go ahead and do your thing.
Nice.
We don't have your voice, Dale. I mean,
Well, that's the great part about the
I know,
presentation.
that's what I
It
thought.
all
It's very-
flows
you should,
for everything.
You should anchor the news.
Yeah, I should do a lot of
Guessed it, at
things.
least.
Anchoring the news isn't one. So Taryn and Trina Gower obviously did a great job for us, and I really appreciate how to be able to have that out, right? To be able to professionally
That's good.
have a presentation on behalf of representing the community.
Good stuff.
I like it.
Diary, Calvin Crook Center for the Arts. Any update, Brenda?
Before you move on, I just wanted to go back to item 6.3, the ALR application that
Yes.
council supported. Actually, the support would be to support them bringing an application to us, because they still need to go through the notification
Oh,
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to be sure it was clear that it wasn't a support of the application, because you need to consider any notification that comes
Yeah.
through. Yep. All right.
Perfect. Anything on the Calvin Crook, Duncan?
Yep, just brief. Busy day today, so I'll keep it brief.
Oh, we got all time. Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the rest. Yeah.
So, Calvin Creek Center is progressing very well. Today is our monthly site meeting. We have our architects, our engineers, our general contractor, and trades on site. Today's meeting, the real purpose is to go through and look at where we're at. We want to sign off on a number of items so that our commissioning agent can come back hopefully mid-June and sign off on that mechanical system once and for all. The progress claims we're about approximately 75%. We're looking at the middle of June to late June for getting the building cleaned on the interior. The exterior is still underway, and they're working on that. But as far as the inside, I mean, the top floor is already cleaned, completed. They're working way down through the building, so things they look pretty good right now. Just a couple items remaining, really, the large items, and I kind of updated this last meeting. The landscaping, they've hammered out all the concrete. That's going to start mid-June. Roland's Auger service contracted through Hagee Construction. They're going to do the fencing, and they're going to do the parking and get the concrete in there. Hopefully around June 15th. He figures he's going to start June 16th. The flooring, really, it's just the common areas on the main floor that need to be floored now. They're last as the minimize the traffic on them, but areas like the archives and the band room, the bathrooms, those are all complete now. There may be a couple of the green rooms in the back that still require some flooring, but for the most part, that flooring is complete, which is really the last item. The painting has been done, the glazing, the doors are hung, the glass is on. They're really rolling through that area quite quickly and nicely. So I haven't been in the building for a week, and the last time I was in there, that was complete. So I'm anticipating this afternoon that really it's a walkthrough to see what those deficiencies are and get to that next stage. Currently coordinating with KPAC to look after the playground. So KPAC's commitment is to put the equipment in the playground. So it's in their best interest and ours to coordinate any gravel or anything like that before the fencing and the concrete gets done, just for a smooth transition. And the cafe is also something KPAC is working on right now. And we're hoping to have all those things complete before the opening in September.
Perfect. Duncan, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Parslow?
Yes, talking more about the KPAC getting the cafe ready. What do you mean by that?
KPAC has some funding. I believe it's from donations. It was before I was involved in the project, but KPAC is looking after the licensed childcare area playground and the construction of the cafe.
Okay, and has that been leased out? Or is
It's part of the lease agreement that KPAC manages that, so whether they run it internal or external. I believe they're going to find an operator for it because it's outside of their area, but I won't put words in their mouth. I'm not 100%.
Shelley?
Yeah, just through your worship, one other thing to add. The responsibility for the cafe was outside the funding envelope. That's why KPAC is handling it and not the city, because the provincial and federal government wouldn't, it was basically an ineligible expense.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Just steps moving forward is as soon as we can get the commissioning, which is required for LEED. As soon as we can get that completed, then we move into substantial completion, where we receive the keys back, and the 55-day period where we hold the 10% is triggered, and then after 55 days, that 10% holdback is released as per the Builders Lien Act. So
Thank you,
we are
Duncan.
Progressing.
Good job. Great to hear.
Okay.
Consent calendar. Moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded McFadden. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Strategic priorities.
Nothing new to report.
Question and answer.
I want to sign up.
Immediate question period.
I have a few questions. For the asphalt milling, Kevin, did you say that you're donating 30% to Bear Mountain?
Yeah, my understanding is that the quantity they're looking for is about a third of what we have available.
Worth about 30 grand.
Okay.
Worth about 30,000, yeah.
And I know that they're starting construction on 102 today. Are there any other construction projects for roads that are happening this summer?
Yes, there are.
Do you know them off the top of your head?
Maybe I'll talk to you afterwards and I'll get you the list.
Yes, there
I know
are.
one. Good job, Kelly. And so I think I'm confused around the ALR motion. So Brenda, you can maybe help me out with that one.
Sure. Through your worship, they were just preliminarily seeing if council was going to be in favor of it. They are in favor of considering it. Maybe that's how we can put it. Yeah, they need to, council needs to include, any input from surrounding residents as well when they consider the application.
Okay, so what would be their process? They would have to go to the community, say the community supports it, and then come back to council, or?
Yeah, there's a formal process that the ALR has that they have to follow. There's notification procedures that they need to document and provide to us. There's an application fee and application form that they'd submit to us, and then we'd provide a report to council. I'm not sure how long that will take them to do.
Okay, because in the regional district, they actually take it to the district first, and then it goes to the ALR, but in this case, it would go to the ALC, and then it comes to council?
Yeah, our requirement is to see the notification process has been completed when we get the application. That's one of our check boxes. Yes, they did their notification, and any responses that come from it will be directed right to us.
Thank you, Joe. Well, nothing? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to recess to closed. Moved by Councillor Wilbur, seconded Councillor Schumann. Thank you, everybody. All those in favor? Opposed?
That's
So we'll,
process.
quick 2 minutes to recess to our closed.